Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Where's My Sage? I'm Mike, and I'm here with my co-host, Kristie London, a medium and...
Did you say cohort? Is that what you said? Cohort or co-host?
No, co-host. Co-host, the mouth is actually working tonight. We're going to go with
we'll
things.
See. That's yet to be determined.
I took a nap. You know, I should be on the ball tonight.
You should be.
Better,
should be. Should is the key word.
But as we can see, technology does not like me tonight. So no green screen. I'm missing my things. I mean, I can turn a little bit. I got my Bigfoot here in the corner. I can always use him for a background. So
why didn't you?
But
duh.
I just the green tonight. I just feeling green. It's like Kermit the Frog. I'm just feeling green.
Feeling green, feeling blue. Aw, suck it
up. So, yes.
So good evening, everybody.
Yes. So what have you been up to this week? Yeah. So what did you do this week? Anything fun or exciting?
A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Nothing a whole lot, And it was kind of nice. It was, quiet after, all the family stuff and all the other excitement we had going on. So it was just kind of nice to take a break and to just chill, But, private investigation we did was kind of nice. Unfortunately, guys, those are the ones we can't talk about. Private clients are different. But so we kind of were able to get out a little bit and do something like that. But that's always fun.
Yeah. I'm back in the woods working the equipment, designing some new equipment. So, and speaking of, hey, brother, what's up? He's hopefully out of the woods. Starting to rain here. So, Ray, I'm sorry about that.
Oh, yeah.
Fortunately, we're not doing readings tonight.
Next week is the reading show.
Next week, 8:00. We'll be on for readings.
Yes, for sure.
So, hi, Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Hi, Katie.
We'll talk about Bill a little later.
Hi, Nikki.
Hi.
And hi, Lori and Dave.
Lori.
Dave.
Oh, hi, Dave, too. Yeah, hi.
Get a hold of me tomorrow afternoon if you can, and we can talk about that. So, yes, please, Ray, reach out to us. Reach out to us next week, and I'll make sure you're right in the top of our feed. So, So yeah, we've been pretty busy on some things. A couple housekeepings from mine, and I'm going to hand it over to you, folks. For you coming in tonight, we're coming to you from a couple different locations. We're coming to you from Twitch and Periscope, YouTube, Kristie's Facebook pages, WLFE DB Radio, live tonight, and then it will be on WLFE DB Radio with our Spreaker page, actually available on all your big podcast locations, Amazon, iHeart, iTunes. If you've got the smart TV, you can put it right on your iHeart app on the smart TV. I found that out the other day and listened to us in the background. Google Play, and then of course Tactical Bigfoot Research. Where's My Sage? So we have a giveaway coming up, and once I can't talk tonight. When we hit 500 subscribers on our YouTube channel and our Instagram, we will be giving away a Bigfoot research kit. It's got all the little stuff to get you started, some spoons and can openers to open those can of beans when you're out in the woods, some headlights, binoculars, some keychains, the tape measures, and the notebook to get you started. Always important to document. For 750 subscribers, we're going to be giving away another kit, and that is a paranormal research kit. It's got the mag light in there. It's got the multi-tool with a small flashlight so you can fix your gear after you break it and fall it down the stairs like I usually do. A nice little mount for a little action camera and a sling bag. When we hit 1,000 subscribers, we'll be giving away to a lucky subscriber a custom X8 tactical knife. That's one of my designs. So that's where I have done my little spiel. I'm going to turn it over to you, Kristie.
Sorry, I'm taking some notes. We have to go back to Ray for a second. Ray, I
hope Ray, are you still with us? I hope. I want to bring that back up.
Okay, Ray, really quick. You really need this, and your wife is very adamant, and I can tell that's absolutely her personality. The letter L is significant for some reason. Her passing, she's telling me her passing was awful, and you really need this. She's fine. She's okay. Stop feeling sorry for yourself and get out there and do what you love. And what I'm seeing, and this could be, I feel like it's a little bit of both for you and for her. I see somebody digging like in a garden in the earth and the ground with like a little spade, handheld spade shovel. I don't really know what the technical term is for that. So the earth is important though in the whole, but I just see this neat, healthy, and my back hurts in my back. So when I have pain in my back the way that I am now, it's my lungs. So usually my back, though, instead of the front, indicates something more serious like COPD, emphysema, pneumonia, lung cancer. But she's also saying something about a collapsed lung, or there was something actually wrong with one of her lungs, like something happened as well. And now I'm feeling a squeeze in here, and I feel like it's more the right side. So she says, I get it. I know it sucks. It was awful. Move on. You don't get to be down in the dumps and feel sorry for yourself. She says, I won't have it. Okay. So know that she's around you, know she's watching you, and know that she does love you very, very, very much. She might be a little abrasive sometimes, but I can personally relate to that. But she's okay, and she's always gonna look out for you. Okay. So I hope that helped you. I apologize to everybody else, but you know what? Spirit rules the roost, and sometimes when things need to be taken care of, we have to take care of them. That's my first responsibility as a medium. So, all right, so we'll
throw that to just in case Ray tuned out. Well, if you're here, let us know, and if not, we'll make sure we get
I see things up here.
Okay,
so hopefully he heard the whole thing. So yes, so there was one thing I wanted to talk about. Hi, Donna. Perfect timing, Donna. So for those who missed it last week, I do want to take a couple of minutes and just share something with you. My son's best friend, they've been friends for a long time. He was one of those kids that always came over in high school and, always, was around the house, and, they got in trouble together and, had fun together, and he's still around. My son's friend, Brian, was recently diagnosed with stage 4 nodular Hodgkin's lymphoma. His mother, Donna, that was just up on the screen, has ordered bracelets as a fundraiser. And graciously enough, last week, Greater Boston Paranormal actually donated $50 to the organization, or to Brian and his family, to help pay for bills and things like that. So yesterday I got to see Brian. He did come over and he did drop off a whole bunch of bracelets for me because I will be selling them. # Brian Strong. He is one of my adopted children, as I mentioned, and his mom is a doll. I love her to death. So really want to help out as much as we can. So just putting it out there that Don from Greater Boston Paranormal did challenge other groups and other people to match or beat what they donated. So I just thought I'd put it out there another week, but also to let you all know that I do have bracelets, and I will be happy to mail them, drop them off, meet you somewhere. They're $5 each. They go for a good cause. Brian will not be able to work, while he's going through treatment, and it's going to be about a year that he's going to have to be off of work as of right now. So he's very optimistic, and he is ready to beat this and kick cancer's ass. So we want to do everything we can to help him. And Where's My Sage also did donate $100. I should put that out there too. So that being said, feel free to contact me. I will accept Venmo to help speed up the process and make sure all the funds are delegated right to her. You will pay me. I will make sure Donna gets it. So yes. So thank you in advance for anybody. And if you could share this would be wonderful too. I know everyone's been touched with, unfortunately, with this horrible disease in one way or another. So any way we can help out, or, help the organizations to figure out a cure at some point would be wonderful. So, all right. So that's my my spiel and my goodwill for the day. Now, Michael, do you have anything else you want to talk about before we introduce our next guest?
Just want to, again, folks, I put something in the comments that we're not doing readings. We're going to do readings next week. Yes. And I look like I'm looking into space looking at that monitor. So let me move it back over here.
I don't know why you have one less monitor. You should have seen the look on Greg's face when I came walking into the house the other day with I'm carrying this big
32-inch monitor.
He looks at me and goes, what the hell are you doing with that?
It's for investigations when we're doing video. I have another one in front of me now.
Yeah. So now I have this big ass screen behind my computer here, and I'm looking at it like, okay.
Okay.
Hi, Mom. So
yeah, again, the Instagram, please go to Where's My Sage Instagram and our YouTube. Please like, share, subscribe. We're both back out. I'm free from home after recovering from a couple of months of surgery. So we're going to be going live from a lot of different places, guys. It may be midweek, it may be on the weekends. Just depends on where we can get out. We got a lot of invites for a lot of different things. So please hit that like and subscribe button, especially on YouTube, because sometimes Facebook does not let us know. So we know their rhythm is there. So yes, Kristie, if you want to do a little background on our guest and bring in our guest. Shaking his head, no one run away.
No, I'm not laughing at Mark. I'm laughing at Jonna's comment. It just popped up right into my. She's like, anything to get that shit out of our house. I can just hear it. Thanks a lot.
3 TVs in this room that I could stream to, and there's 42 here and 55 directly behind. So if I'm looking at somebody sends me Bigfoot video, or they send us something from Paranormal Investigation, or we have something, I can put everything from phone all the way up and figure out exactly when the best pixel rate is to take a look at things. So.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, and I'm looking forward to somehow hooking this thing up and eventually being able to use it. But that's Greg's department. We'll let him worry about that. I think that's why the look on his face was kind of like, oh crap, what's she doing? Because he knows it's going to be a project for him to handle. So that's okay. All right.
You can get a suntan now. So
can't afford it. I got to start taking care of my skin. Anywho, all right, we better bring our ever so patient guest on. So you guys, we have a really, really fun guest tonight. He is here to offer a wide variety of all different things. His background, he is a former state policeman, 25 years on the job, criminal investigator, paranormal investigator. He is the founder of the Pennsylvania Paranormal Association. What else? He also has a degree in psychology, and he has been on shows on Destination America and on Travel Channel, such as Paranormal 911, Haunted Hospitals, and what's another one? Oh, Paranormal Survivor. He's been on a whole bunch, and he's actually been asked back again to continue on with the upcoming seasons. So without further ado, let's bring on Mr. Mark, and I'm going to say it the right way, Kais.
Good evening, Mark. How are you?
Because normally, if everybody can see that name at the bottom of the screen, everybody goes right for keys. So
I'm guilty.
People get the Kais, it's perfect.
Excellent. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me here. And I'd like to start out just to say to Ray, I'm so sorry to hear about your mother. I lost my mother 6 years ago. It wasn't an easy passing either, but just real quick, I'll say this. I work with a very gifted psychic medium myself. And one of the first things that she said to me is my mother wanted to relate to me that if she knew how easy it was going to be to pass, she would have never worried about it ever. So hopefully, that's some comfort for your mom, even though it seems a little rough to us on this side. When they cross over, it seemed as just a quick little movement.
Yeah. Oh, that's so nice. That's so nice. Thank you for that. Oh my gosh.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right. So how are you? You're busy.
I'll get around.
Yeah. Here and here and here and here. That's good though, right? It keeps you young. That's what I've been told anyways. I don't know. Still waiting to see.
Keeps me young. Give me a little gray hair, but
yeah, right. Thank God for highlights. Well, at least for us women. All right. So I think I have to say that one of the more intriguing things that I found with your group or your association was the fact that you prefer to be called resolution team, not necessarily ghost hunters, paranormal investigators. You like to be called the resolution team, which I found very, very interesting. It's a refreshing perspective. Even though I think in all of our own ways, we all are out to do all the same things. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to resolve the problems and things like that. But, a lot of people don't refer to themselves that way. And you really do come at it from that perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And we started out as what I would call an investigative team, a paranormal investigation team. And our goal originally, right from the beginning, was to conduct as professional investigations as we possibly could. And we wanted to concentrate a little bit more on homes and businesses where people were actually looking at hauntings as a problem and they wanted the activity stopped. So, we wanted to bring in a variety of different resources. We wanted to see what worked, what didn't work. Everything from clergy to energy workers, psychic mediums, you name it. We wanted to try it. And if we were successful using those, we wanted to keep them as resources. But eventually, our goal was to put a team together with all those resources to be able to resolve a haunting, not just investigate and find evidence, but we wanted to be able to stop a haunting if that was possible.
That's great. So give us, I kind of just introduced a little taste of your background, but so give us your background, with what you've done and how you eventually found yourself working in this field in the first place or getting involved in the first place.
Yeah. So unlike yourself or other psychic mediums, I had no psychic ability whatsoever. I did not live in a haunted house, but I was blessed with overwhelming curiosity, I guess I would say. And I considered myself an optimistic skeptic when it came to all this stuff. I really, really wanted to believe the stuff was true, but I was either reading about it in a book or seeing stuff on TV, and something was just holding me back. And I don't know if that kind of goes along with the police work or if that's just my nature, but I need to be hands-on. I need to see stuff, feel stuff, sense stuff. That's just how I am with pretty much everything. And I want to know how things work. So, I kind of started out skeptical and wasn't sure what to think, but I think I fell into a category where a lot of people fall. I wanted to believe, I wasn't really sure. However, I had the opportunity to actually join the team, and I was with a local team for 2 years. And over 2 years, really had such small experiences that I still wasn't convinced that, ghosts were real or psychic ability was real. For me, the first thing I really wanted to do was start working with psychic mediums. I think they were just a little bit easier to find than people with haunted houses. And, even if I knew of somebody who had a haunted house, I wasn't going to go up and knock on the door and, hey, do you mind if I spend a few nights, just checking out the activity? It's a little weird. I don't know you, but can I hang out on your couch? So I was able, and I think it was through synchronicity, and looking back from where I started, one thing after another just seemed to keep falling into place for me. And I truly believe I was sort of guided into this. Just a real quick story. I used to watch MTV when they played music on there.
Right.
And, it's been probably
when we only had 31 channels.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Not 31. There's that little gap we have.
It's probably been 20
that
years.
old.
Yeah, I told a kid this morning my flashlight that I use for work is older than him, and actually is by about 5 years.
It's a good thing you're still older than me.
I'm not saying how old I am.
Sorry to interrupt there. So
Excellent.
Where were we?
Yeah, MTV when it was
MTV.
music television and not.
So
never mind.
I haven't watched MTV probably in 20 years, and I happened to be at home one day, and I didn't know where to even start to find psychic mediums. There was nothing in the yellow pages. We didn't have internet back then. So
Right.
I just happened to be home one day scanning through the channels, and something caught my eye, and I stopped, and it happened to be MTV, and someone was talking about something, and literally in about 30 seconds, a commercial came on. The very first commercial that came on was for a metaphysical shop in Scranton City. And I'm like, wow, that's exactly what I was looking for. Went down to the place, and it was closed, but they had a big sign right on the front door, psychic readings, call this woman. And that's how I really started out, just by calling this woman and saying, hey, I'd like a general reading. I've never had one before, and met with her. And I had it in my mind. I wanted to do something a little different than just go in and, hear from my family or friends that might have passed on. So for me, it was all about spirit guides. I wasn't sure if they existed, but I said to kind of just the open air, the universe, hey, if I got spirit guides, if you can hear me, no offense to my friends and family, but I don't want to hear from you at this reading. I need to prove something to myself. I want you to sit back, and I want to hear from spirit guides. If they're real, I've heard so much about them, read so much about them, I want them to come through. And I met with this woman named Sue, and she asked me to bring a tape recorder with me, which I did. And what I liked about her, she never asked me one single question. She sat down and just started feeding me information. And the first issue came up about something financial going on. I needed to watch, or it's going to cause troubles with my wife. And literally right before I went, my wife and I got in an argument because I tend to spend money off of a joint or checking account with ATM cards, and had a bad habit of not putting those expenditures in the check register. So she thought we had all this money. We didn't. So
the Corvette's not wise.
We don't do that anymore.
Good man.
That was the first thing right out of her mouth, which literally just happened that morning. So that was kind of intriguing. And then she said, I have a spirit guide here for you. And the whole entire rest of that hour was completely about spirit guides. And I asked her, I said, was that a typical reading that you would do? And she's like, well, more or less. She's like, typically family comes through for people, but for you, it was all about spirit guides.
Right.
Blew me away. So that sort of propelled me to even want to learn more. And I was able to work with her for a little bit, and finally wanted to get into studying hauntings, and just happened to, again, have a connection. My father-in-law worked with a guy who was on a paranormal team, and they asked myself and my wife to join. And again, we were with them for about 2 years. Really no experiences that blew me away or convinced me that there were ghosts or hauntings or anything like that. But what I did know is that I met a lot of very sincere people that seemed legitimately scared to death, and they wanted whatever was in their house out. So this team that I was with, great technically at investigating, didn't really have a lot of resources to stop hauntings. So at one point, my wife and I broke away from there, decided to start our own team. And like I said before, that was our goal, is to bring in these resources, study them, test them, and put them to work in these homes and see if they can actually release a spirit or cleanse a house like they claim they could. And again, my very first time working with a medium, blown away. And we checked back with the clients several times after that, and they claimed all was good. So kind of how it started. And after that, it just sort of snowballed, and we kept getting all these requests.
Wow, that's great.
Now, did you have an experience prior to that kind of brought you to that, or was it? I'm working swing shift and there's crazy stuff on when I get home in the middle of the night, and
I would say this, and this was a comparatively now, it was such a small experience, but it jump started my curiosity, I guess. I was alone one day, and I lived out in a rural area, so I'm home by myself. I'm 12 years old, and one of my duties or chores was to cut our grass. So I'm out in my backyard, which is fairly secluded, and thinking I'm alone out there, I hear somebody yell my name, like really loud, and I jumped thinking I was alone and nobody was supposed to be there. So I turn around and look, and there's nobody there. So then I'm thinking, geez, that was pretty weird. Was that like, what they say a ghost would do, or like a spirit guide, an angel? Am I psychic? Was it the lawnmower making some kind of weird ambient noise? I didn't know. But if we flash forward, geez, probably to age 14, I'm home sick one day, and my brother and sister in school. My mother was at work. My parents were divorced, so I was the only one left in the house. House is all locked up, and plain as day, I heard somebody yell my name, and that startled me even more because I'm thinking somebody's now in my house, and I'm looking around. The doors are still locked. There's nobody there. But instantly, it took me back 2 years, and I'm like, holy crap! I think I did hear something back then, and that was it. Nothing else. Like I said, I didn't have a haunting at my house that I knew of.
Right.
You know, I didn't think I was psychic, but overwhelming curiosity started from there. And that's actually why I got into psychology. I was looking for some parapsychology courses that I could take in college. And unfortunately, most of those were either in like Europe or maybe on the West Coast, but nothing really seriously out around the Northeast part of the United States where I was. And I really wanted to kind of stick towards home. I was involved with our local fire department then. I was a firefighter and an EMT, and I really loved what I was doing there. So, you know, decided to stick close to home and went into psychology just kind of in place of that. And, you know, thought I'd see where life led me.
Very cool. I know my oldest daughter is a psych major, and she's in her senior year, but she's already starting her master's program. And I just asked her again recently, "Did you tell any of your professors what I do yet?" She's like, "Hell no."
They may want you in.
How rude.
But, you know, there's so many different ways you could go with psychology, though. I was actually looking at environmental psychology, which people really don't realize this, but psychologists will go into a business and see what kind of layout there is and see how people respond to that and try to come up with ways to make workers more proficient.
They really
work
cool.
with pilots and cockpits to see what would cause reflexes to happen faster and what would be more user-friendly sort of in cockpits. So they kind of work hand in hand with engineers.
Interesting.
So basically feng shui modernized. So.
That's
there
it.
You go.
Feng shui of the mind.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So you end up going to school for psychology and you make the jump towards law enforcement?
Yeah, you know what? It was crazy. I was actually a 911 dispatcher. Yeah, they're the same.
Yeah.
You know, I swear, you're counseling people no matter what you do. So I during college, I was a 911 dispatcher and full time after college doing that for a couple of years. And I was actually looking at going into the Air Force. And a buddy of mine, again, like synchronicity seemed to kick in for all my opportunities that opened up to me.
Right.
You know, I was right across the street where the 911 center was from a local state police barracks. And, you know, the guys and girls used to stop by every once in a while to pick up some paperwork and just to talk to us. And I became friends with one of the guys, and he said, "Hey, we're giving a test. Why don't you take it?" And I'm like, okay, why not? Took the test. I failed. And that's not uncommon, though. It's sometimes people have to take it a few times. But
It's like the driving test. Gotcha.
Sleep through the first one or three. And...
Right? I thought I did great. I came out of there. I'm like, yes, that was so easy. And I didn't score high enough to move on. So it was like a year later, they gave another test. And he's like, take it. I'm telling you, people take it several times. And I came out of there. I'm like, man, I destroyed it. That was horrible. And I ended up getting high enough to move on. So
good for you.
I can't figure out how the heck you get in there. But yeah, so I got onto the state police. And, you know, I get asked by people all the time, have you ever had experiences on the job? And oddly enough, 25 years of that, I don't even know how long, an EMT firefighter. Before that, I never had one single experience, but I started doing the paranormal investigating while I was a trooper. So once that got out around our station, and our station is usually, you know, like I'm in a headquarters, so there's 3 other stations that fall under that headquarters. So word starts getting around. So of course, you know, I get some jabbing, you know, the ghost guy and all that stuff. Walking in my office one day, I have all these little paper ghosts hanging over my desk.
Oh, that's funny.
But people started coming to me and saying, "Hey, I got a question for you," or "I got a story for you. What do you think this is or that is?" It was amazing, the overwhelming amount of support that I had. And I'm talking even from like upper level supervisors that had interest in this, curiosity, had their own stories. So I wasn't sure what to think when they first found out about this. I guess what made it a little easier for me, there were two other troopers that I worked with, and they were both on my team when we started. They were dying to get on a team like this and said, if you start a team, we want in. So when we broke away and started our own team, the two troopers joined. I had a municipal police officer, a university police officer, two guys from our local FBI office. So we had all these law enforcement people that joined. So the credibility went up, and the way we were explaining how we were tackling this is, we're putting a big target on our back and going in, and we want to be just very objective and see what happens one way or another. We're going to rule everything out. We're going to find some stuff. And oddly enough, we didn't rule everything out, which was just amazing.
So that's really very, very interesting. Did you have a question? Another question about that? Did you, Mike?
You just your backgrounds. You come from a various, local, state, and federal. So you end up with quite a few different investigative techniques and schools, I'm sure. So did the guys have a lot of technical schools when they came in to join your team? Be it photography or documentation. I mean, as law enforcement, you're trained to be an observer and documentarian,
right?
Novelist in some cases. But did you find the skills that you had in practice every day helped out with your investigations with having a team like that?
Oh, tremendously. I think number one, just for the way that we ran our investigations right from the start, because we wanted to be as efficient and as fast as we could with getting everything set up. And we actually put a report together that would basically document where we had every single piece of equipment that we put out. We had a command center, so anybody who was in or out of that command center while we were actively investigating was documented where they were. A lot of the guys I worked with, while I was doing this, I actually was working undercover. I was an undercover narcotics investigator for 10 years. And the other two guys that came on our team worked with me there. So we had a lot of training in audio recording, and without getting into too much of it, basically we would use multiple points of recording to try to gather information. So we weren't going in just with one handheld voice recorder trying to pick up voices. We'd have recorders everywhere basically, and a lot of them were just controlled recorders. So if we got voices on a mobile recorder that we were using, people heard of EVP sessions. If we were going to do that, we would want to make sure that the voices that we got on there weren't coming from maybe another floor or outside or somewhere. So we had other recorders to refer back to and compare the noises that we were getting on the recorder we were using. And they call me the ruiner, because I have, like, our team members would call all the time saying, hey, I got this great piece of evidence, I'm going to send it to you. And then 9 out of 10 times I would find it just by going to those control devices. Right. Because as sound travels, through floors or through walls, especially with these digital recorders now, they tweak the sound a little bit of voices, and even weird shuffling. If you have, like, let's say you're in a building with a little gravel on the floor or something like that, that shuffling will sound like whispers on some recorders. So, our team is required to have a camcorder in their hand anyway, just to give us an idea where they're at, what they're doing. They're great sound quality on the camcorders. So it's another control device we use, and we compare all the devices anytime we find something just to rule out ourselves, really. So that was a huge help. And I think it helped rule out a lot of false voices that we got. And the documentation was great, but we went in with the idea of treating a case just like a crime scene. And one of the things that we started noticing was that the reports people were giving to us were like crimes. People reporting, different sounds, missing items, assaults sometimes, disturbances. So we wanted to go in and find out not only evidence of a haunting, but evidence of who is doing the haunting. Could we do that? And, once we found a credible psychic medium that we were comfortable with, who could actually give us names, we had a way to actually find out if we can target that person for being the person who would likely be haunting the place. Our medium believed who it was, but we wanted to see if we can back that up historically and, with any evidence. And, it sort of turned into, almost like an investigation, trying to take physical evidence and witness statements and historical events and put them together with psychic information to find the actor. But I wanted to take that one step further. With my background in psychology, I'm always asking why. So I wanted to know, okay, tell me why they're here. Why on earth, if somebody died and had an opportunity to go to heaven, would they stay here? Like even if you have like a rowdy family, if somebody dies, why would you stay in that house? And, the other question was, what is the intent behind the activity? Because a lot of people report a lot of different kind of activity, especially of like a family that lives there has one type of activity. Somebody new moves in and now reports a totally different kind of activity. What's the intent behind that activity? So intent was big for us as well. So that
changes the TV channels.
Yep.
It really does. It really does.
Right.
Mike,
you could probably
have experience and others don't in the exact same environment.
Yeah. So, that it was a tremendous help, I think, coming, having natural investigators coming and doing something like that.
Right.
And we're going to get some of the technology and stuff like that and some of your stuff when we're going to hit your website a little bit later on.
Yeah.
That's all right, because the investigations are
pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
So I have to say though that, so for all of you out there, I saw Mark on TV too. I watch all the shows and do whatever. And, but I didn't know you yet, and so I actually had somebody come to me for help, and they were in Pennsylvania and I'm in New York. So just the logistics of it, could I go and do this? Yes. But a lot of times, the way I work just as a medium, I go by what I feel. I try to help them from a distance if I can. If I think I need more, Mike and I will go. Or sometimes I basically get direction from my spirit guides, right? They tell me how to handle a situation and give me an idea and an overview of what's going on. Sometimes I call people and I say, hey, I want to bring you on board. Sometimes it's, hey, I can't get there. Can I trust you to do this or whatever? We all have our network. So this time I didn't have any connections in Pennsylvania yet, and so I literally Googled groups, paranormal teams in Pennsylvania, and when I pulled yours up, didn't see your face, really didn't even remember your name at the time. It was just something that connection that was made later. I remember opening this site, and it was amazing because it was so well put together and it was so professional, and you don't feel like you're actually involving yourself with just a typical, and there's nothing wrong with the way other people do it, but yours was so different. It was a comfort to say, I feel like I'm dealing with people who know what they're doing. And I needed that because I was in one state and you're in another, and these people need help and I can't get to them. So I needed that. And so the way I even happened across yours, with all the other ones that came up, it was just great because reading through it, you have a lot of teams, you have a lot of different members. And actually, I didn't even realize at the time, how widespread your group really is because, again, very professional, you need somebody, please email us. And here I am going, because I'm sure we've all at some point been there going, okay, they're either going to know I'm legitimate or they're going to think I'm just some nut. Right. And they're going to be like, oh yeah, right. Why would you be reaching out to me? But legitimate people know we all ask for help. We all need help at times. So I was like, well, here goes nothing. I hope I can trust these people. And I think you responded in less than a day. Right. And, you actually assigned one of your teams who was close to the person who needed help, Bill and Lisa Benzie, who I still keep in touch with. They are wonderful.
Fantastic.
Oh my gosh, they're so sweet. Haven't met them in person, but we text back and forth and check in from time to time. And we really, there he is, there they are. And they were great. We emailed first and, tested the waters, and then we talked. And then whenever we would talk, it would be great. And I would say, okay, this is what I can do from my end as a medium. I was able to go this far with them. And then they did the rest. And actually, I think I even referred them to help somebody else at one point too, who was, I think, in Ohio, because I couldn't get there either. So just timing with everything. But you know what? Timing is essential, because I might not have actually been, sometimes I'm just a stepping stone, but maybe they needed the next people to go. It doesn't always have to be me or have to be us. It has to be the right people. So, and that means it could be a whole bunch of us that play our own roles in a part, you know, or in a situation too, which is important to recognize. And that's why it's important to have resources, right? And so I was very impressed. And as I was reading through, your face popped up. I'm like, oh, I know that guy. Okay. And then finally get to meet you after all was said and done in Rochester Parafest, which was great.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, your team was efficient, professional. They're very personable. And, you know, even the person they were trying to help, that was a very, very tricky, very deep, very ominous situation. And they did everything they could. And actually we even kept, they even were considered enough and professional enough to keep in touch with me to say, hey, we want to keep you in the loop. This is what's going on, and asking my opinion on things too. And it was an overall great experience. I'm not going to lie, especially having to be a cold call like that and not know anyone. You know, so always follow your guts, guys, because those are your spirit guides. That's your intuition. They're working with you. But it was a wonderful experience, and I'm really grateful for that. So anybody who definitely needs some help, definitely call.
And we're grateful to them. I mean, they are just so fantastic. And we were so fortunate to actually be able to get a lot of cases that come in. And, you know, in retrospect, I'm not sure if it was good or bad, but when we called the group the Pennsylvania Paranormal Association, that sort of draws attention from the whole entire state. So we got calls from all over the state. And when we started, we actually used to try to get to anywhere. If we had to drive 5 hours, we would do that.
Right.
But at one point, we were actually about 40 to 50 cases backed up, and we were overwhelmed trying to get to them as fast as possible. And we were doing about a case every other weekend, and we just couldn't get to everybody as fast as we wanted to. So I started reaching out and putting out feelers for other people who had the resources to resolve cases, and that was important to us, that we wanted to connect with people, and we did just what we did. And when we first talked, you kind of get a sense that people kind of work with clients the same way and have the same thoughts and theories and things like that. So when we reached out, we try to connect with those type of people. And, our goal is to make sure that they can help the clients, not just go and present evidence. And now people are like really scared because you made it real and nobody stops the haunting. So,
yes,
we started putting resources together around the state, and we got crushed with cases out of Philadelphia because we're about 2 hours from Philadelphia. We're just outside the Scranton area. And, we met a great guy down there, Jim Maitland, same kind of scenario. We needed some assistance, and I don't remember exactly, it's been so long now, how we connected, but it was over a case, and, they were willing to help us out. And I think they actually do more of our cases now than we do ourselves because we send so many down there. But we're not greedy. We like to give out cases to get to people fast because a lot of people are really scared, especially when kids are involved. So I don't want to hold a case for 2 months when I could have somebody get to them in a week or two. So we're super, super thrilled and honored to have all these great teams working with us. And when we created the name, we called it the Paranormal Association. And that was our goal too, is to have an association of teams that we wanted to do, that did what we were hoping to do. So that's kind of why we put it together.
I know that sense of urgency, that feeling of, I've got to help these people because they can't help themselves. And even the feeling of the fear of failing them. Right. Because I mean, honestly, even as a medium, to go and do a cleansing or to do something like that to help somebody, we can do all we can, but sometimes it's not 100%, and you can't guarantee it. You can only just come back and help again if need be, or continue on, and it really is, everybody has to play their part, especially the people you're helping. You know, if you give them specific directions, you need them to follow those directions. It's for a reason. And, you know, it's just a lot of different scenarios that people don't realize, but the urgency to get to someone, especially when they're not around you and they're trusting you to call you to ask for help. That's a big deal. And it can be a lot for us to take on when we can't get there or do it ourselves, you know? And, you know, like Mike and I are an hour and a half away from each other too. So to coordinate between jobs and families and work, you know, everything is just, you know, there's so many factors, right? There's just so many factors.
Without a doubt.
And now you're going in to help folks. Do you occasionally find you're going back sometimes because those that you've tried kind of miss that interaction or that attention that they're getting from whatever is going on in the house at all? Kind of like an addict that wants a little more, you know, kind of, that I need more, and it seems to be a little worse. And this follow up with that is, are you working with any of the religious groups, churches, or anything like that to give you, you know, an extra little backup, you know, or some guidance when you need it?
Yeah, you know, occasionally we do find people that have had maybe, you know, 1 to 3 different teams in prior to us even get there, or maybe they've had clergy in there. And, you know, when we go out, even though people have been in there, if, you know, clients are saying I'm still having activity, we'll go out just to check it out for ourselves. Because like I said, not everybody has the resources to be able to stop a haunting. And, you know, typically it's a one-time and done deal for us, but you know, we don't have a perfect record either. So sometimes we have to go back on our own cases. So even if somebody else, you know, did try to cleanse the place and it didn't work, that's okay. You know, we've tried tackling some cases where just us as our main team, we're having a little trouble. So we called in other outside resources to come back in with us. And, you know, there's people who are more adapted, you know, one particular problem than another. You know, let's say it's a particular issue to do with Native American Indians. You know, we have a resource we could call in. It's not working what we're doing, but you know, they might respect them, and we call them in. But occasionally it does happen. Luckily, we have a fairly good success rate for one time and done. There are those addicts out there that we go in one time and again they do call back, hey, I have, you know, all this other stuff going on. And there's also, you know, usually some kind of emotional thing going on with those people too. So we kind of take a look at that. You know, we talk about it as a group, whether we should go back or not, or whether we should refer them maybe for some counseling or something like that. And because a lot of times, kind of like what you said, that I'll put it this way, it becomes like their claim to fame. That's what they're known for. That's what they like.
Yeah.
But they have an emotional issue of some sort that's connecting that. So, you know, we have actual counselors that work with our team. They're an outside resource, but they're a group that will work with people. It's a fantastic holistic psychology office. So they actually took care of a haunting for them. And they're very open to this sort of thing. So they're not going to look at somebody and say, okay, you're hearing voices, we need to get you medicated here.
Right.
They understand some people have psychic ability. So, you
That's
know,
nice.
Yeah. So we can tell them, listen, we'll continue working with you, but we need you to talk to these people first because there's an emotional issue that's keeping this attachment between you and the spirit there. And we need that knowledge to know how to move forward. So sometimes that helps. We have cases where we've just had to say, listen, you know, our medium feels everything is cleared out of here. If you have stuff, you are attracting it. You're pulling it in here because you're concentrating on this stuff so much. You're doing your own investigations. You're calling in these other teams.
Mike is speaking your language here.
Yeah. Don't investigate your own house.
Exactly. Don't keep calling in one team after another because you're putting the intent out to the universe that people are coming here to connect with ghosts, and you're going to get good ones and bad ones.
Exactly. You don't know what you're going to get. That's the thing. And, you know, it's nice to see because there are a lot more, you know, I joke about my daughter's, you know, and she definitely, you know, accepts and, you know, respects what I do. And she better because all 3 of my kids are gifted anyways, whether they like it or not. However, you know, there are a lot of people, especially I think because society, you know, accepts and is more open to the fact that we are human and there's a whole part of us, even our brains, that, we just don't know enough about. And that's what drives us. That's a part of being human. And so a lot more professionals in the mental health care system are open to that. I've even had people come to me for more of like a spiritual counseling. And I work not necessarily hand in hand with their counselor, but they need a little bit more that coincides with what they're working on with their counselor. So they understand I'm not a doctor at all. They are just looking for somebody with a different perspective, with who can offer the kind of guidance that I can offer from our spirit guides, the divine, or even their loved ones, to help them work through things, not just give them answers, to help them do what they have to do so their soul can accomplish what it needs to, not just be fed all the answers and, be put on easy street. And so it's really refreshing. Some I've encountered, the people come and they're like, yeah, I can't really work with both because, they're really not, they'll humor me because I'll pay them to go for a session, but they don't really like that I'm talking to you. Others are like, oh my gosh, yeah, my psychologist is very open, and can, acknowledges it herself or himself. And, it thinks it's great that I'm doing both because it's helping me and we're figuring things out. So it really just depends, but I think it's more accepted than anything. And it's so important because it really is a huge part of us as human beings. There's just so much out there.
One thing that we found on almost 100% of the severe cases we work is there's some level of post-traumatic stress that's involved with that after we clear a place. And, almost every case we go to, we tell people it's going to probably take you a good 3 months before you realize you haven't thought about it in a couple days. And wow, the house has been quiet and you're convinced that the work we did actually was effective. Yeah. And, some people are naturally opening up psychically, and they think they may have a new haunting. It was always there. It's just they're starting to recognize stuff now.
Exactly.
Those people are having trouble coping with that now.
Yes.
So one of the things that we also try to do for those people is, again, working with the psychologist, is teach them coping skills to be able to deal with the stress that's related to the activity that they're experiencing. Because the activity might be like, when you work with it for a while and it's not in your house, it's really not that big of an issue. It's not that big of a problem, but the tiniest little thing to somebody else is huge. Right. So, you have to take it person by person. Some people can't get enough of this stuff. You guys know that. Other people, they see a little shadow and they want to burn their house down and get out of there. So
it's like a spider.
I was just going to say.
Break the flinker out.
I know.
Yes. That's so funny. So what kind of backgrounds, because you have so many people, especially in your core group, your original group, can you tell us about the backgrounds of some of the people that you are associated with on your team?
Yeah. When we started out, like I said, we had all these cops, and then, we wanted to cap it at, about 8 to 10 people and rotate those people through, because the group I had before had a lot of people, and it, I don't think they were being rotated through properly, and there were little problems. We wanted a smaller group that was more experienced and had more time out doing these cases. So we tried to keep it small, like usually around 8 people we wanted to cap it at. And we've grown a little bit beyond that right now. But we started out so cop heavy, with my wife being a realtor and really almost the whole entire crew being cops. When I talked about the next person, she's like, no cops, I'm done. No more cops. So we put an end to that.
The donut budget's gone.
So we started getting some normal people on the team. And we have currently right now, we have a school teacher on board. We have a dentist on board, another retired state trooper who works with us, who now works with kind of with the fracking industry. He's more into like the safety stuff for multiple fracking companies out in the northeast part of Pennsylvania. His wife is an IT person for the Pennsylvania State Department of Corrections. So she's usually working at several different Department of Corrections, state prisons around the area. We have another retired police officer. He's now a township supervisor in the local township near us. But he retired from the state police from the local police a few years ago. Boy, who else? I know I'm forgetting some other people. We have a Nicole is a biologist, and she works for the Federal Forestry Department, but we've used her resources on hand. We had a case where some human bones were found, and some bones were found that the people believed were human. And when we went out to investigate that, I was so used to getting called to, human remains in the woods, like a skeletal remains would be found, and you go out there and it turns out to be a bear because that skeleton closely resembles a human. So I kind of thought, okay, somebody found some bear bones, and it turns out they were human, but our biologists help us with a forensic anthropologist identify those as human.
Awesome.
And
we'll get into a little more detail of that story later.
Yeah, yep.
For sure.
We have a state game commission officer who's on board with us, and he brings in a whole bunch of resources for wildlife or something that we might be looking at, and or things that could be found out in the woods, I guess, rather than
Bump in the night.
some other things. He hasn't found Bigfoot yet. So.
Department.
Yeah. You guys got enough other little things down there running around. The lichen loop. With your team and this experience, the specialized equipment. We had a chance, we've been in a couple of Parafests together. You've used stuff that regular teams don't use, from GPR and canines. I mean, that's generally a paranormal investigator team's, go bag. It's usually flashlights and REM pods and your digital recorder.
Tape.
What equipment do you bring? Like I said, into use, if you don't mind talking about, or if you can talk about that kind of case, and being able to say, hey, we've got a paranormal case and we need ground penetrating radar. I mean, how many people are pulling that, out of the car or something like that? I mean, I happen to have a couple of scientists on my tactical Bigfoot team, so sometimes the gear that comes out is a little different than most because who I have on my team, or they're out building stuff for us. So can you go over some of the gear that you guys are using? Pull into your website and the cool apps you've got on there.
Sure. Yeah. So, the main bulk of our technical equipment is what you would typically find in most groups. So we have the voice recorders, video cameras, stationary closed circuit TV cameras, and we monitor that at a command center. EMF meters of various kinds, the REM pods, like you mentioned. We have an air ion counter, thermal imaging camera that we use. We actually use some trail cameras. They have such high def, great clarity cameras that are out there right now. If we need to throw them up either outside or maybe in an extra room, we don't have a hardwired camera for. They're fantastic just to put into certain areas, and the clarity on them are really good. So that's kind of some of the stuff in our main bag of tricks, but we kind of go outside the box a little bit on some cases depending on the need. And again, this was huge for me, just having connections, because of 25 years working with the state police. You work with a lot of different kinds of groups. One being a cadaver dog team. I became friends with the director of, it's called Rescue International, out of the Pocono area, kind of right on the New Jersey, Pennsylvania line. And, we had a case where the clients at this, it was kind of like a resort area, ski area hotel, believed they had a haunting going on. They had local information that a homicide had happened in this one particular room that most of the activity was occurring in. And one of the prominent things that people were complaining about was this absolute horrid stench that would appear into the room and then disappear. And they went so far as to completely gut the whole entire room, insulation, floors, everything right down to the studs. They were kind of thinking they'd find like maybe a squirrel or, a raccoon or whatever stuck somewhere in the walls, but nothing. So they completely gutted it, put it back together. It was, pretty good for a couple of weeks. And then somebody complained about the stench again, and the staff was starting to smell this. And they described it as like a rotting human. So they thought it was connected maybe to this haunting. So having a connection to a cadaver dog team, I thought, let me see if I could get these guys in here to rule this out for me, because if the dogs run through, they're not really picking up, any indicators that a body was in there. We can rule that out, hopefully. And these dogs are incredible. They'll pick up the tiniest little proteins from like even 100 years ago.
Really?
So it's amazing to watch them work. And we were working the dogs side by side with our psychic medium, Virginia Rose Centrillo. And we sent the cadaver dogs in first. And the team used 2 cadaver dogs and a control dog. And they independently ran them through this hotel. One of the dogs like lightly hit on the door of this room that people were complaining about, was room 12. Went inside and again, very lightly hit in the back left corner, indicating that there was a body there at some point. Well, the dog just indicates that there's a body there. They don't know the difference if it's there or not.
Right.
So they ran the second dog through, very strong indicator on the door that something was behind the door. Go in right to the back left corner, indicated that there had been a body in that location. Ran their control dog through, who would hit on something like maybe a squirrel, but shouldn't really show any interest on the proteins that they're sniffing for. And the dog walked right past that room, went in, just walked around, walked out. No indicators on anything, just total disinterest in the room. So we then wanted to run our psychic medium through, and I watch as she goes, and she's walking towards the door. My heart's starting to beat a little bit. I'm like, come on, hit the door. And she walked right by it. And I'm like, oh man. So she goes to the next door and she taps on the door, turns around, walks back to room 12, taps on that door and goes, I don't like this room. And I'm like, no kidding. You got to be kidding me. So we go into the room and she picked up on what she felt was a woman who was intentionally injected with heroin and basically died in that back left corner, same exact spot that the dogs hit.
That's awful.
Bear with me for a second. My excitement got my earplugs pulled right out. So
been there, done that. Been there, done that lots of times.
So it was amazing. She hit on that back left corner, the same exact spot the dogs hit, and blown away. The dog team was blown away, and awesome. My whole entire point of ruling out a body in that room and telling the people we don't think you had a body in here was turned on end. And sure enough, this cadaver dog team said, "Yep, there was a body in here." So
that is so cool. I just love that.
And we have Joe Hawk, one of our members, is one of the retired police officers I mentioned. He worked down in the Maryland area with the K-9, and when he retired, came up here and was working as a local police officer without the dog. And we got talking one day saying, these dogs have all these indicators we can actually use out on paranormal investigations. What do you think about bringing the dog out? And he thought that was a fantastic idea. Let's see what would happen. And just for an example, like we could put the dog down if it was a hot night or hot inside a building. Likely the dog would be panting. So we knew we could put him down in a neutral position. He'd probably be panting. And then we wanted to watch, would his respiratory rate change? Would he go from a relaxed position to alert? Would he just stare at something? He's got indicators if like somebody's hiding behind a door. He's got indicators for police work that there's a living person there. So we wanted to use all these things to see if he could react to stuff. And on that particular hotel we went on, he was actually reacting in the building as well, as if someone was there. He was indicating that there was someone that we couldn't see in particular spots, digging like mad on a carpeted floor. We're not sure why he was doing that, but absolutely going mad, trying to tear through this carpet. So
I'd love to see that.
I'd
love to see how they work. You know what I mean? Especially, it had to have been cool for you said her name was Virginia, right?
Virginia, yes.
It had to have been, because from our point of view, we know what we're getting, but we know we can't always prove it. And evidential mediumship is so important, but it does not always work that way, or you can give what or you're being told is evidence, but if a person cannot connect with it, then it's not proven. It's not validated. So that can be really hard, and it can take days, weeks, months, years for people. I've had people 2 years later get a hold of me and say, you did this reading for me 2 years ago. And I just want to let you know, we just didn't know what it was at the time. And here it is now 2 years later. And now I get it. And I'm like, I don't even remember you, but I'm so glad you got that, so you just don't know. And it can be very frustrating, especially for us. So the validation never gets old. And then to see, not to prove ourselves, but just to see how we can all come together and work together on that level. It's just really cool. I don't know how else to describe it. It's very exciting, Yeah. It's just neat. So,
and we had two amazing incidents with the dog that validated psychic information at the same time. Well, we'll say one with the dog, Mike. You mentioned the ground penetrating radar.
Yeah,
I could tell you that validating psychic information as well. With the radar, we had a case that when Virginia showed up, she had started walking through the yard, and she's got a very specific reaction to bodies underground, and she claims that she'll actually start to vibrate and physically shake, and could feel like a vibration when she feels bodies underground. So she had zero information on the location at all. So when she arrived, we started walking towards the house, and she said to us, "Are there bodies in the backyard?" And I'm like, "I don't think so." Which she didn't know.
You tell me.
Right?
Yeah.
So most people don't say that, but there was a really old cemetery out just beyond the backyard of this house. So we knew about that. She didn't. So I'm thinking, okay, she's probably picking up the graveyard. So she's like, "Do you mind before we go in, can we take a walk on the side yard and the backyard?" And took a walk through the side yard, got in the backyard, and she's walking around. She's like, "There's people underneath their backyard. I'm telling you." She goes, "There's multiple graves here." And it was just grass, in the typical backyard. They had a shed, swing set, that kind of thing, a little fire pit. And we started walking towards the back of the house, and you could kind of see as you get closer to the graveyard, there was a small little wooded area between the house and the cemetery, and then there was a church there with the cemetery. There were unmarked stones, so just tiny little stones like a marker, but nothing written on it. As you get closer to the church, the stones start getting larger, and then they start getting names and dates and stuff that are on there.
Yeah.
So Virginia was confident that there were bodies in this person's backyard. So what we ended up doing was bringing in a ground penetrating radar team, and sure enough, they found several bodies in the backyard, like close to 15 feet from the foundation of this house. And we talked to a local historian, and she explained, this was a several 100-year-old church and graveyard. And the further away from the church that you were was usually people who were poor and couldn't afford a stone, unclaimed bodies where maybe somebody died and they couldn't find any family for them. So they buried them at a distance from the church. What happened over a course of several property sales and of the church and where the house was, the property lines changed. And the house was actually built on what used to be part of the church and the cemetery. And people were buried there that, were just unclaimed or poor, that didn't have any grave markers. And these people ended up with bodies in their backyard. And this was also...
Yikes.
This was also the case where the two human bones were found. So what we believe happened, this is going back to, I think, the either early 1700s or late 1600s. It's an old cemetery and church. They had wood caskets back then. So we found ground hog holes or woodchuck holes in the ground there. And they weren't buried as deep as they are now. So we think they were probably dug up, by an animal and found in the yard. One was a pelvis bone. One was like a femur off a person. And one of their friends decided to take the pelvis bone, crush it up, and throw it in the storm drain out in front of the house. And they claim the activity really fired up after that.
No.
So, I don't know why somebody be offended.
Real or not real, it's still going to happen. That's bad.
Well, listen, in all fairness, if they're going to take some off of one side, just take it off the other, and I'm okay with that. Just shape it down and make it even.
So this was also the case that we were able to work with a forensic anthropologist to identify that as a human bone. And it was the first and only case we've ever had to call the coroner's office on. Being a police officer, you find human bones in somebody's backyard, you got to make sure it's not fresh. So we had to call the coroner's office in. Obviously, you can see how old this thing was. And basically, he said, if I take custody of it, it's going to go on an unclaimed box on a shelf that I have here with the rest of the unclaimed bones. He goes, what I would recommend, if you can, rebury it back in the graveyard if you have a place. So we actually called in a priest to come in and do essentially a burial right there. It was just a femur bone at that point, but we were hoping if, someone who owned the bone at one point, was connected to it, that they would, see that as a nice gesture. We put it back, and hopefully things would be good for the family. There was a lot more going on than just the person connected to the bone, but we wanted to do that for that person. So then the other thing I wanted to mention real quick is we had another case to validate our psychic where she was picking up this very dark negative entity in a home, and we had Ben, our dog, again laying on the floor, and he will not move without command. That's how he's trained. He stays by his handler, does not move unless commanded. And Virginia started saying, "There goes." And right before she could even say it, the dog is up and starts running up the stairs, takes a right and slams into a wall and lets out this, this very loud yelp. And we're like, holy cow, what the heck happened? And Virginia's like, well, I was just going to say the entity just went up the stairs and went through the wall to the right. And apparently Ben saw that and took off after it. But we found out later, there's a great possibility that that wall used to be open into another hallway. So the house eventually became, we think, from like a single family to a double block house, but we believe there was a wall put up there. So that would possibly make sense that it was going to another part of the building, and the dog was just after it. Apparently he didn't notice the wall.
Are you guys the only team that you know of right now that are using a canine in your investigation?
I've heard that there's some other. Unfortunately, Ben passed away a few years ago, so we're currently not using him. But just the results that we had from him were amazing. We had the good fortune of having a police dog that was unlike a family pet that usually is a little sketchy about going into a new building and they got to check it out. For Ben, that was playtime. He knew he was going in there. He had a mission. It didn't matter if he was on linoleum, hardwood floor, carpet. That didn't affect him. He was trained to work on all these different types of, flooring and in different kind of environments. So he was a perfect dog to take in. I kind of found out that the producers of a well-known show that was on TV that happened to use a dog for a little while found out about the dog. They saw an episode of the dog being used on there, and then that was back in 2008. We were using the dog, and I think 2010 or 11, that dog other dog showed up as investigating on TV, and mutual friends had said they kind of got the idea from us. So I don't know if that's 100% correct, but they're reliable resources. So we may have had the first dog on TV back in 2008.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Quick question from Bill. What kind of dog was Ben?
Ben was a Czechoslovakian Shepherd, and he was pure black. So that's essentially a German Shepherd from Czechoslovakia. They looked identical.
Foxy head. Yeah.
Yeah. Real big dog. One little oddity was that being he was pure black, we wouldn't take him into smaller places. There was a candle shop that wanted us to bring him in. We said, there's no way we're bringing a dog in here, working in the dark. There were a couple bigger places with long hallways. we had some bigger places. We're working in the dark now, and Ben's out there doing his thing. And at a couple of these cases, we heard him running towards us. We're like, slow down, Ben. Where you at? We couldn't see him, but we knew he was coming.
Oh my God, that's funny. Well, I think this will be a good time for us to take our break. Please stay with us. We're gonna take a short break, and we're going to just give you a little taste about what WLFEDB radio is like, and our sister and brother shows that are on the network as well. And if you have not done so already, please like and share this broadcast and the others as well, and subscribe to the YouTube channel that we have. Where's My Sage? And we will be right back with Mark Kais. I'm going to get this down pat. Now, Mike's the one he's the challenged one. We're going to have to work on that, but we'll be right back.
I can't say my own name. That's right. 4 letters in the front, 4 letters in the back. It's easy, All right. So a little
We'll be
word
right
from
back with Mark with
WLFE
more
DB
stories.
Radio.
Hey everybody, this is Ted from Talk with Teddy and WLFE DB Radio Network. Let's talk about this network for a second. It's very unique and it has different shows with different topics that you won't hear anywhere else. First, let's say our shows cover a wide range of topics. Paranormal to horror, skeptical to believers, and all types of variety shows. You won't be disappointed. In fact, we found, not by the limitations of audio, that we have added video casting as well. Do yourself a favor and check out a show or two. The full schedule is lined up on WLFEDBRadio.com. In fact, there are past shows as well that you can check out. So remember, WLFEDBRadio.com. Now here's a few of the podcast hosts that also carry the WLFE DB Radio brand and shows. Our shows can be heard on Spreaker, Deezer, iHeart, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and more. So check out WLFE-DB.com.
WLFE DB Radio.
And welcome back, folks. Mike and Kristie here from Where's My Sage with our special guest, Mark. We're talking the paranormal and some of the investigations they have in Pennsylvania. We talked about some gear, and if you don't mind, Mark, I'd like to share your website for folks who your contact information is on there as well. So I'm going to do a quick little screen share, and I will be dropping in the website into the group here in a second. Oh, I'm in the wrong chat. So let me put the website in here, and I'm going to go ahead and share. And you've got some really interesting pieces of material on your. We got Kristie on full. We don't want Kristie on full. We're going back here with this. Share. Where's my share screen? There we go. Screen. So there we go. So your wonderful website has. Got to go over to the other side here. These great little portals in here. So down here you have the current conditions. You've got moon info, solar, and geometric details. And, you know, a lot of people don't really use that stuff. So it's really interesting to be able to pull that. I mean, it's a big thing for me with the Bigfoot thing. I know some of my other teams that I've worked with, we keep that stuff there. Do you notice that you're debunking orbs or other material sounds due to weather conditions, moon phases, that kind of thing? Or do you stay away from certain activity on the moon phases where, you know, as a first responder, I'm sure you've noticed the activity on full moons are a little bit heavier than, you know.
If you're a police officer, emergency responder, you work in an emergency room, 911 center, you know, full moons mean you're going to be busy. There's no doubt about it. But yeah, one thing we wanted to do when we started this was to collect long-term data. So, you know, we want to take a look over the course of like even 10 years to see if there's a correlation on the nights that we do investigations. You know, does, you know, solar wind play a part in it? And, you know, for people who might not know solar wind, there's, you know, the sun is, you know, charging particles coming towards the earth. You know, things are moving towards the planet and it creates this solar wind, and there's different particles that could be measured. So we take a look at that, X-rays, solar X-rays, whether there's a geomagnetic storm, you know, solar flares coming off the sun, because all of this different stuff affects the Earth's magnetic field. And I think when it comes down to it, is every single thing in the universe is made up of electromagnetic energy. It just vibrates at its own vibration, its own frequency. It makes things, you know, in the solid world and in the frequency world, different wavelengths. So, you know, we wanted to see how planets align, and you know, we have some astrologers that we work with that even can tell us, where the planets are at a particular time. Does it affect activity? Where's our solar system, sitting in the universe at this time? Because, not only do the planets revolve around our sun, but we're in this galaxy, and this whole galaxy is moving through space. It's not sitting still, just spinning. It's actually moving. So space has denser parts of it and less dense areas, and all of these things, and combined with what's going on the planet, affect the magnetic fields on the planet. And people are bioelectric devices really themselves. So we have our own fields, and all this stuff interrelates. So
Absolutely.
that kind of stuff, we're not looking at it saying, hey, we got a full moon coming up, let's go investigate. It's kind of more like we want to know all these different conditions on the nights we investigate, and we're keeping statistics on that to hopefully someday down the road to look at different correlations to see what might be causing more physical activity on a particular night, or maybe people are having more sightings, physical manifestations on these particular times,
Right.
when like the moon is full, or at this part of the the
Have you
season.
have you seen some pretty good correlations or documented some pretty good?
Well, I think
we run
one
a
thing
couple of different apps. So
one thing that we've definitely noticed, which I think maybe a common sense kind of thing, but when we have electrical storms or rainstorms, we tend to see a little bit of heightened activity on those particular nights. Especially maybe if it's like an hour or so before. So I think the atmosphere is getting charged, and again, you have all these highly charged particles moving around, and I don't know. This is the big question, and Kristie, maybe somebody like you could answer that better. But is that causing a spirit to be noticed just because of the atmospheric conditions, or can a spirit use that to physically manifest itself, or do they have no control over it and it just happens? I don't know.
Well, I think it's a little both. It's
Yeah.
exactly. It's both. Some are in a state of not, being unaware. And, like I always remember when I was first really and truly coming out and openly with my gifts and really and truly learning them. A friend of mine that I grew up with, we kind of started working together. And I remember she had called me the one night and said, "You're not going to believe this." And now she physically sees with her eyes more so than I do. And they were just sitting in their apartment watching TV, and the kitchen was just off to the right. And she kept hearing this little flicker, like of a bag. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
And she kept looking over, and then the dog, she had a little dog, Ninja, would go running over, and he's barking at this fridge. And finally she happens to look over, and all of a sudden she sees a faint outline of a guy in just like jeans and a shirt. And he's like trying to grab the chip bag on top of the fridge. So there are all different variations of existence, I guess you could say, of awareness. Some people pass and they're very well aware. Some people don't. Some people do, but they don't know what they're capable of. Some go over into the light and they have all the answers. They know what's going on. I mean, and depending on what kind of, who you work with medium wise, it may all be different, because some of us will say, no, this never happens, but it happens for others. So it's important to know too that, just because something doesn't work for one medium or doesn't happen in one way for one medium doesn't mean it's impossible. And so we have a responsibility to be open to that and to be able to acknowledge that and say, just because it happens for me doesn't mean it doesn't for her, or vice versa. Because then people get this idea in their head that something never will happen a certain way, and they may miss out on a message or something that they need. But yeah, no, you're right. It's all variations. But yeah, I mean, they feed off of electricity, right? Because don't you look for, I know what's one big thing Mike goes right in for, where are the wires, where are the grids, right? Every time we go investigate somewhere, and I'm sure you guys do too. And if they're pulling from electricity, right, they're going to pull from a thunderstorm too. They're going to pull
wherever it's at. Yeah,
exactly. It doesn't matter if it's man-made or if it's natural. So yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And I think, what we kind of see sometimes, and this is sort of my theory, but when you have certain conditions going on, like solar flares, let's say, they could knock a whole power grid out, and satellite companies will actually move their satellites out of the way, so they're not getting fried, and they're actually wrapped in a protective coating to try to avoid these discharges so they're not getting fried. But if people think of, spirits being on a frequency, if you have a radio station, this happens a lot, where you'll have two overlapping frequencies. They're two different frequencies, but they'll overlap for a brief second, and you could hear the wrong station playing on the one you're listening to. And I think a lot of these, magnetic anomalies can sort of, jolt those off of their normal frequency and cause them to overlap at times where, sometimes it might be real quick and you only see a ghost for a second or two. And maybe if you're trying to get voices, you might get a voice or one or two. And other times, again, atmospheric conditions and how long these frequencies, how close they get to each other, you might be getting longer sentences instead of just words on your recordings. Or people may see a ghost for 2 or 3 minutes as compared to maybe 30 seconds.
Exactly. Yep. It just depends on what level they're at, how strong they are, what's going on for them as an individual soul, and what place they're at.
I've had people say that they're carrying lightning detectors and stuff like that when they're going into a house or checking a closet or something like that. And that's my next one. I carry a physics app on my phone that does a whole bunch of different analyzations and stuff like that. I'm not so into the spirit, the ghost apps and stuff like that. But at least it's using all the physics app, and that was brought to me by a biologist. It's like, okay, what's the accelerometer doing? What's the light sensor doing? Because all that stuff's already built into the phone. I mean, we found out the other night.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said the new phone we found out the other night, if you go by IR, you can find my phone wherever it's at because it's still emitting a very low frequency light. And it's crazy. I mean, some of the stuff that's out there. When you talk about your medium, and I'm going to kind of swing back to your case files because I just want to show folks, your case files and how everything's loaded. And it is the cases you've mentioned already. They're already on your case file page. I'm going to bring that back up here.
Yes. Yeah. They are.
So like the dog. So folks, if you're really interested in finding out more about Mark's cases, he's here, and in true documentation, format. He's got everything down, what they are, where they're at, and files. And that's great to go in and do that research. That's a big thing for us. So, and if you click on one, and I should have a couple. Oh, we got some new ones up there. We're going to you mentioned we're going to talk about this with the Derby a little later, but it's a nice setup here, and we're going to bring some of that stuff up in a minute here.
I love how
again, please go.
I've got to touch on
need that screen anymore. Stop sharing.
So it works out sometimes.
Well, it's very helpful.
But you're doing this documentation. You're out there with your medium. She's talking to her spirit guides. You mentioned to us that occasionally you've had problems with releases for your spirit guides on cases with different TV shows, and maybe we should hit some of those behind you. Some of the things you've been on.
Yes.
Say that one more time.
The authorizations for your medium spirit guides for TV and media.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your show, the shows that you're on.
So
you've been on a number of shows.
Thank you, Paul.
And on some very big networks.
Yeah. And I have to really thank the website for notoriety sometimes. There was a show back in 2008 that a production company found our website, just doing some research, and looked at the cases on there. And the show was called The Haunted, and it started out on Animal Planet. And they contacted us and said, you have some interesting cases that we would love to use on the show. Would you be interested in doing it? And I was a little hesitant because we've done some work with local news stations, like around Halloween time. They're interested to see what we do. And it's very intrusive having a camera crew out with you while you're trying to do a real investigation. So And we were like legitimately trying to help people and get authentic evidence. So, we tried it a couple times, and I wasn't like huge into just having people tag along, and because they're like, oh, can you give us a minute? We need to change batteries, and it's very disruptive. So,
Yeah.
I didn't want to make a spectacle out of what we were doing, and we wanted to, like I said, work on these resolution cases. They weren't just cases we were going out trying to get evidence. So, they actually explained the concept to us and asked if we would do the recording of our own cases. They weren't going to be there, but they would interview us later on what we found in kind of clip our own video in with theirs as actual team footage. And there were a couple other groups around the United States that were supposed to be involved in the show. So that was in 2008 when we started, and that was just being found through the website. And then different producers with these production companies tend to go in different places. So somebody left there and ended up on a show called Paranormal Survivor. And for about 4 years, they kept calling me saying, hey, we know you got cases, would you mind using them on the show? And for 4 years, I turned them down, really, because I didn't really want to call clients and say, hey, are you interested in doing this? That wasn't my thing, and turned them down. And we ended up by accident getting on season 5, and there was the same production company contacted us.
By accident? Wait, I gotta ask. By accident, okay. How do you accidentally get on TV on a season of TV? How does that happen exactly?
So we had a bunch of clients along the way that said, hey, is this going to end up on TV? And we said, well, probably not. And I'd say, why, are you interested? Oh yeah, we wouldn't mind telling our story. So I said, okay, left it there. So the same production company was going to start a brand new show. So knowing me, they reached out and said, hey, we got a new show. Would you be interested in sharing some of the stories for that? And the concept was, though, rather than long-term hauntings, they wanted a one-time, like extremely startling experience and have somebody come and talk about that. And I said, almost all our cases are long-term. I said, I could contact some people that are interested and see if they could talk about maybe that one particular night that set them over the edge or something like that. So they said, well, let's try that. Until we talk to them, we don't know, but yeah, we'd be interested in talking to anybody who's interested. So I ended up with like 9 people who wanted to do this. And that was just from like our previous year that I had talked to people. And they called me back in a couple days and said, hey, we're not going to use any of those cases. It really doesn't fit the criteria, which I already kind of knew. But they said that their casting was already full. They had enough cases for the season 1 production. So it was about a day or two went by. The producer that would call me every year called up and said, hey, we're doing season 5 of Paranormal Survivor, and we got all these cases sitting here. So what do you think? Are you interested? And we're like, well, these people want to do it. By all means, go and do it. So season 5, they got me, and cool. We ended up doing that. So funny story, Mike. The production company was out of Canada, and they have really, really strict guidelines on what they can do. One of which is they cannot show logos on TV, which most production companies, even in the United States, they'll either blur it out or ask you not to wear like sneakers or a shirt with like a little logo on it. It's considered, when they're doing docudramas, it violates the advertising clause or something in there. But this one particular production company did not even want people wearing like jewelry with like stones or something, because somebody designed that and it's considered advertising. So anything that like people would normally wear, as jewelry, they didn't want earrings, necklaces, nothing. So that was one of the issues. The most bizarre thing that had happened as I went through a couple hours of interviews, and I had a habit of saying like my one investigator, Joe, and they kept on saying, oh, you can't use Joe's name. We don't have a release signed by Joe. Can you just say the investigator or one of our investigators? And that happened to me a couple times. So when I got done, Virginia Centrillo, our medium, was up next to be interviewed. And I sort of stood back, and we rented, or not we, but the production company came to us, which was fantastic. They rented this beautiful lodge that was not far from us. and the owner of the lodge was there, and they rent this place out for all kinds of different events and stuff. But it's like a weekend lodge if you wanted to go somewhere kind of out in the woods, and again, kind of the Pocono area is a beautiful area. So the owner was there. So I'm kind of hanging back with the owner, and we had to be very quiet. And Virginia starts talking about her work and the insight she's getting. And then they start asking questions about releasing the spirits that were there. So Virginia begins to say, my spirit guide Betsy showed up, and Betsy started saying, and they cut her off and said, whoa, you can't say Betsy's name. And she said, well, Betsy's my spirit guide. And they said, well, we don't have a release from Betsy. And the lodge owner and myself were looking at each other like, are they missing this? And Virginia saying,
what are we not understanding about this?
Betsy's been dead for like a couple hundred years. Betsy's a spirit, she's not a living person. Well, we still don't have a release form, so we're not going to be able to say the name.
And the pen picks up and starts signing, and time to go.
Go.
Somebody gets kicked to the back of the head from somebody who's not there.
Things you would never think of, but that's the behind the scenes kind of weird stuff that sometimes happens.
Just when you think they're going to get, the spirit guides can't even get on TV.
Or better. Yes.
That's awesome.
But if you ever see a episode of Paranormal Survivor with psychic medium Virginia Centrillo talking about a spirit guide, her name is Betsy.
That's funny.
I think you need to make a shirt for that. And
yes.
I'm going to share your shirts because they're awesome. And we are in, we're Halloween, we're coming up the holidays. So let's do that. And then we'll swing in
right here.
Yep.
Yes.
So let me go back to a share screen here.
And these are all sort of inspired by the mediums that I've had the opportunity to work with, the cases we go on. I tried to make, we go into some really dark places, some dark cases, and there's a lot of fun. Like, we try to be as light as we can. People who are having very bad activity need to lighten up the mood and stuff. So, we try to have a little fun with it. And we often come up with like reoccurring statements. They always say, like, a lot of people think they have a demon in their house, and we go do the investigation, and I end up saying, your problem isn't a demon. Your problem is your ghost is a jerk. So that's where the shirt comes from.
My scary demon left me for a nicer family. So, folks, if you go to Mark's website, and again, for those folks listening in on the podcasts, it's theppa.net, and then you want Bad Ghost, that link there, and that'll take you in. And there's some awesome shirts. It's 3M. Do you know where your ghost is?
No, wait, where's the one that talks about mediums? Because there's one I can really relate to. I love it. And of course, I can't remember what it says.
Might be the one you scrolled. If you scroll back up, right there.
I think it was one of your first ones. It was one of your first ones, I think.
This one here. We're on Amazon.
Why are you advertising? Stop it.
That's the other thing.
I need a pink drill.
So you can order through Amazon, correct?
You could, yes. Yeah. If you actually go and you click on the shirts, it'll take you to the link where you can acquire a shirt.
Oh, wait, there it is. No. Free channel rides. That's the one.
Yeah.
Go back. Yes, Attention Spirit, free channel rides. And what's this? I can't read that small print. I'm not going to lie. It's too small.
Inquire within.
That's right.
My ghost has problems. These are awesome.
Maybe
Bad Ghost Orbs Observe
this year. That'd be great.
These are some great, not in my house.
That's so funny.
So again, folks, these are up on Bad Ghost link on the ppa.net, and that link is in the chats I put in. Mark's got some really cool sweatshirt. That's disturbing. I need that sweatshirt.
Sometimes we also see
what your problem is, you're dead.
That's one of our most common sayings. A lot of these ghosts don't realize they're dead, so you kind of have to put it out there to them sometimes.
Seriously. Hello, let me enlighten you. That's
All
great.
right.
Oh my gosh. Boy, you
So-
just have your hand in many pots, my dear. You are just all over.
Well, I try to get around.
Investigator, problem solver.
Actually,
Wow.
I'll drop that link right in right now. So we got it again.
Gotta make every minute count.
Yep. So,
Um,
Micah, you just popped in. There's a great orb T-shirt.
oh,
I was just mentally thinking, I didn't see her pop in there.
yeah.
So, all right,
she'll
let me
catch it later.
throw that in there. So
there is one that I want to talk about because we're already running short on time. We could talk for hours. So I want to hear about the investigation where you have some real footage of some crazy stuff.
Yeah. It was a great case. It was such a great case. It inspired me to write a book.
Like how we did that segue, right? We try. We really do.
it gave me time to change screens too.
This house was, I mentioned Ben, our dog, running up the stairs and hitting the wall. This was the case that I was referring to. This was a home in Upper Darby, which is just outside of Philadelphia. The street where you're on, just as you're turning into the street, you can see the Philly skyline, so it's that close to Philly. The reports from the clients were so much activity so often that I didn't believe them. And they actually picked up on that, and they were kind of mad at me the first time that we spoke, and they told me that 9 years later. I didn't realize they were upset with me, but they told me that. It was just too much. And I'm like, they're elaborating, exaggerating, or they're totally misperceiving what's going on, because it was every single day, almost all day long. And one of the biggest reports were quarters flying all over the house, almost every room. They'd have quarters. They say any time of day, you'd hear a quarter hit the wall. You'd see a quarter go flying. Didn't know where they were coming from. But they were reporting things like, the lights turning on and off like people have, or seeing shadows, doors opening and closing. They had a ceiling fan that was not wired in anything start to, move a couple times. They had an electric keyboard. The keys actually would light up when you play it. That started to play a couple times on its own, not plugged in. A couple extreme things. They would claim that when they went to bed, they come down in the morning and find kind of heavy dining room chairs stacked up on top of the table with napkins, sitting on top of the chairs. Really? They'd find like multiple peanut butter jars taken from the kitchen, put in the dining room on the table, cabinet doors open. But the thing that really made me kind of raise an eyebrow was they reported having just a several-month-old baby moved from a bassinet in the master bedroom and tucked in under a blanket, like 2 bedrooms down, which they had to search the house for the baby. They couldn't find the baby, found the baby 2 bedrooms down. So I'm like, hey, I'm not sure if I'm buying all this activity. Some of it might be real, but do we have a human here kind of adding to it a little bit? Because they did have a couple teenagers in the house. You never know. So on one hand, I thought this is a fantastic case to go and try to debunk a lot, because it still gives investigators some good experience looking into things. But on the other hand, if even half of it was true, we had a great chance to document physical activity. Because most cases that we do, it's more like perceptions. People either see a ghost, a shadow, they hear something. Maybe once in a while they'll have like a door open or something move, but not that often. This case was overwhelming on the physical activity. So I thought, let's go check it out. And we went down there, and this case took us almost 2 years to fully finish. Working with the family, the activity, we were actually able to observe almost everything that they were talking about, except for the dining room chairs and the baby moving. I think nearly everything else we witnessed on one of the visits. And we got some good evidence that we collected off of that. And my goal was to try to get some physical stuff to see if they're, either being honest or perceiving correctly what they're seeing.
Right.
The case involved, a true haunting of human spirits. There was voodoo involved, something negative that was sent into the house, manifested, human attachment. And it really showed how the living people can affect the type of activity that's coming back at them, and how there's an interconnectedness sometimes between the living and the dead, and how a person's behavior, attitude, emotional state can affect how much activity happens and when it happens, because a lot of times people can control some of the activity in the home and they don't realize that. But this case was just a profound learning experience for really everybody involved, the team, the family, and it was complicated. That's all I could say. It was, 2 actual physical investigations. A team of our mediums went in, and then we had other resources that we were trying to work with the family to try to stop this haunting. And it was the most difficult case that we had worked on to resolve.
How did you know it was voodoo, and what type of voodoo was involved in it?
Well, this is an interesting story how this happened. This was kind of early on when we started working with Virginia. So we had already tested her out, used her on a case or two, and her information was unbelievable, the accuracy and the amount of detail she could get on spirits. So we were quite confident she was gifted in that, but we had asked the family to leave while we were investigating, and we're doing a walk through the house. And at one point, Virginia says to me, "Did the family do voodoo or have voodoo done on them?" And I'm like, "Man, that's a huge claim. I think they would have told me that if, that's kind of unique." And I said, "Not that they ever mentioned to me." And we did a fairly in-depth interview of them. So she's like, "Do me a favor. I need to know. Can you call them and see if they did any voodoo in the house, or somebody did voodoo on them, or something with voodoo?" So in my head, I'm going, man, this is make or break the psychic time, because we have a wife that's totally on board about ghosts and hauntings, a husband that absolutely does not believe in ghosts at all. Something weird's going on, he said, but he does not believe in ghosts.
Just not willing to give in just yet. I just love those. Yeah.
So I give a call, and the woman's name was Sharon. Sharon answers the phone, and I said, "Hey, I got a weird question for you." And I'm thinking, please be right, Virginia, because if Virginia was wrong with that big of a claim, then the husband's going to go, "She's a fraud. She's not really good." So I said, "Weird question for you. Did you guys ever do voodoo in the house, or did you have voodoo done to you?" And they're like, "Yeah, we think so." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "Don't you think that's kind of important with what you got going on here?"
Right.
And I said, "Can you explain?" And they're like, "It's really personal. We didn't want to bring this up at all." And I said, "Well, I'm not going to go into it with you, but when you get back to the house, we need to know what happened. You're going to have to sit down and at least talk to Virginia about this, because it's integral with what's going on here." And it turns out, I talk about a lot of that in the book, so I won't give it all away, but the family, this guy was divorced. There was a friend of the ex-wife who does Santeria, and there was some Santeria done specifically on him.
Nasty stuff.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So
that's something that, for all of you out there who don't know about voodoo and Santeria, if someone were to come to me, you really, again, you need to be humble and know your limits, especially when you're gifted and you're, working in this way. And when somebody comes to me and I even remotely pick up on voodoo of any kind, I have 2 people I go right to, Mr. Joe Pieri and Mr. Tim Shaw, because they are the masters at that. I can take it to a certain point, but otherwise, as soon as that it even remotely comes into play, this is what I can do. And now you're going to go talk to these guys, because that is some serious stuff. And you can actually talk about pissing a ghost off or making it worse for yourself. You don't even want to mess with that, because it'll just come back on you 100-fold. It's just awful. And it's like it's like super glue, It's not like your typical, when somebody else's intention is behind any of that, it just empowers it that much more. It's just awful. And
I don't know the complete ceremony, but I mean, this entity that was manifested and sent to this guy, specifically to the dad, they I don't know if it was a piece of hair or something, but this energy was attuned to his energy. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we watched over and over the course of 2 years is when this guy was in a very happy state, things were going great in the family, and they considered themselves like, I guess happy, just happy at the time. There was almost no problems going on in the house. But when he would get depressed, or when there was a lot of friction between mom and dad, or dad and the kids, or something like that, a lot of fighting, and the energy was really low, this thing was showing up all the time, and right around this guy. And that's, we talk a lot about a person's personal vibration, and you got to keep your vibration high, your energy high. I mean, this thing, he was able to keep this thing at bay when his energy was high, but when it dipped down low and those two energies aligned again, man, this thing was all over him.
Oh yeah, because it empowers itself.
Cool.
Either way. That's crazy.
Yep, this thing was feeding off of him, and almost vice versa. And because the more this thing fed off of him, he was starting to pick up that energy coming back, and having anxiety and anger, frustration.
Right. Oh, that's crazy. Unbelievable. So during this investigation, you were actually able to capture something on video that we get to share with everybody tonight. This is pretty remarkable. Michael, this is all you.
Yep. Which video do you want to start with? The chair or Virginia?
The chair is probably the hardest one to see, if you want to do that one first. So one of the things we did was set up a video camera and all these recording equipment all over the house, and got everybody out of there. We had the doors all surveilled, and because they claimed when they'd leave and come back, the house would be in disarray a lot of the times. So we put a camera, and this particular one is in the master bedroom, one of the places where they had quarters flying across the room all the time. And if you're looking at that, a quarter, you can't really see the quarter great go across the screen, but a quarter comes out of nowhere, goes flying across the floor, actually hits that computer desk chair that's sitting there. And if you watch between like the triangle the two legs make there in the center, right up at the top center, it looks like a quarter manifests out of nowhere, but that's a little black dot. It's a quarter. And on the actual DVR, you can see it go whizzing across the floor, hits the chair, and just drops right underneath the chair.
It goes from like an open door?
No, it comes from actually, like if you see the foot of the bed, it comes from like back that area off screen and goes flying and hits the chair in that direction.
Okay.
But
go ahead and play.
Fast that you could barely even see it move. It just kind of appears right in front of the chair. And we tried to slow it down a little so you could see it actually moving, and it didn't really help that much, but you could see it a little slower appear right under the chair there. And again, it's just a little black dot when you're looking at this.
That's crazy.
So now, if you keep this picture in your head, I'll have another story here in a minute, but if you see that door, that goes down into a hallway. That railing is a set of stairs that go down to the first floor. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute.
Okay. I got the next one is going to be your partner there.
Yeah, so this one is in the basement, and this was on our second visit. That first clip was from our first visit. This is the second visit. This is actually Paul. If you could do Virginia first.
Sure.
So Virginia's down in the basement, and she wanted to loop a recording of the Hail Mary prayer because she was picking up something very negative down in the basement and wanted to see if there was a reaction. She was down there by herself. As she's down there, Paul and I are upstairs in that bedroom we were just looking at. So Virginia's just walking around, seeing if anything's going to react. And if you look to the right of her, there's behind her is a hot water heater. Just to the right of that, if you look a little bit towards the ceiling down there, you'll actually see one of the quarters fall out of thin air.
Okay, hang on 1 second. I don't know why we're running slow. Hang on, I think the weather is taking me out. Give me 1 second.
Say we have awful storms going through here.
Let me.
The basement was the location. The basement was a location. They were also reporting. They used to import wine and sell it. They had a lot of wine bottles that were popping off the shelf and smashing on their concrete floor down there. And it was kind of one of the hot spots.
Not good.
Different kind of activity down there.
I think that would irritate me more than anything.
Hey, they were losing money, but that was one of the things that also dealt with the Santeria. Part of that was to cripple this guy.
Oof. So.
And if you listen to that, you'll actually hear the quarter hit the floor as well.
So turn your volumes up real high.
Yeah, you'll see a little flash to the right of that hot water heater behind Virginia.
Okay. We got about 5 minutes for you folks that are with WLFE DB Radio. I'm going to be signing out in about 2 minutes from there. If you want to switch over to Where's My Sage, either on YouTube or Facebook, you can find us there. So let's go ahead and we'll play
Definitely join us. You don't want to miss this.
So.
Ooh, you can see it. You can see it shine, like up by the thing on the wall where that pipe was coming out of.
All right, that's it. Do it again.
So.
Yep, to drop right there.
All right, that's it. Do it again.
So as a good investigator, Virginia is trying to get them to do that again, which did not happen. But what I wanted to say about that upstairs bedroom, obviously we were up there. We didn't realize this happened. And Virginia had called us down. What she didn't know was that while she was here, another investigator, Paul, and myself went upstairs, walked that hallway back into the master bedroom. I sat on the bed and I shut the door, but left it open about 3 inches just so I could see down the hallway. Now, we're the only 3 people that's in the home at the time. And I'm just casually talking with Paul. The door opened about 2 feet and then shut immediately. And I looked at him, he looked at me, and I'm like, I don't know. I opened the door.
I don't know.
Open the door. There's 4 quarters right across the doorway. We just walked through.
Really? That's so cool.
Quarters all over this house. It was really amazing. So right after we went downstairs and Virginia told us about this, you can see there's only rafters on the ceiling there. We tore that ceiling apart. My first thought was, somebody probably had a quarter or a couple quarters on a pipe, maybe on the beams. I want to check for that just to make sure they're not messing with this or setting things up to happen. And we cleared the whole entire roof. I went upstairs. It's wall-to-wall carpeting. There's no vent holes, nothing. So Paul says, do you mind if I sit down here by myself for a few minutes? So he goes down there. He actually killed the lights. And he's sitting there maybe 20 minutes, really nothing happening. And now, one thing Virginia was kind of picking up was a very Nazi type of personality in the basement as well as this dark thing. So Paul's really into history and the war and everything. So he's Polish. He came out with a comment, hey, I'm just a big Polak. I'm not going to hurt you or something to that effect. Make something happen. Quarter falls right out of the air. So that's the next clip.
All right. Well, now we know where all the spare change is going. We have to use our ATM cards for now. The spirit's got a plethora.
So, there's nothing you need to fear from me. I'm just a big Polak.
And it's tough to see, but you can actually see that fall as well towards the bottom of the screen.
1541, the quarter just came out of the ceiling. Thanks for doing that. Could you do it again for me?
All right, let's hit it again.
I'm here by myself.
Wow.
There's nothing you need to fear from me. I'm just a big Polak.
And the first night that we were actually on this case, we have the sound of coins hitting stuff all over the house. It was just incredible.
Thanks for doing that. Could you do it again for me?
Wow.
Wow, that's amazing. Unfortunately, it's just about time for us to say goodbye to WLFE for this week.
Okay. Let me close that screen. Stop share. And again, folks, you can find us on one of the Where's My Sage pages, and we'll catch up with you guys soon.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Yep. And if not, you can catch the audio replay on your favorite podcast location. Okay. All right. We're good.
Awesome.
So you've got how many books now? You got 3 books out, correct?
I've got 2 books out currently, and this December I'll be starting book number 3.
Okay.
Great. And how many? You're about to start another season? You've been invited back, correct?
Yeah, Paranormal.
Are you allowed to talk
911.
about that? Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so I was involved with season 1 of Haunted Hospitals and Paranormal 911, same production company, myself, and I think there were 3 other commentators that would kind of jump in every now and then when people were on both shows explaining their experiences that they had, and just for people who aren't that savvy with a lot of the paranormal terms and things, they'd ask us just to jump in there and maybe explain like what a cold spot could mean, or like what a sighting of a black mass might mean, stuff like that. So
Right.
season 2, I was involved with Paranormal 911, and they should be season 2 of Haunted Hospitals just wrapped up in production, and they should be starting season 3 of Paranormal 911. So if anybody is a first responder of any kind that works in even a prison, hospital security, police officer, firefighter, EMT, they're going to be looking for additional stories. If people want to hit me up on Facebook, they could hit me up, and I'll get that information right along to the production company. And
That's awesome.
yeah, if you look up Mark Allen Keyes on Facebook, it's got my picture on there, and I mean,
Kai's keys, same difference. No.
Keyes or keys. Here, I'll explain it to you as I do when I lecture for elementary school kids. If you take the K off of Keyes, what do you have?
Eyes.
Yeah, there you go. Put the K on, you got Keyes. It's so simple. I don't know how people screw that up.
See, I can pronounce things and spell things too.
Right?
And all
Mike, on the other hand,
I
sorry, I couldn't resist. I've been very good tonight. Not a whole lot of jabs on here, for you.
too much time under the water scuba diving, my brain doesn't work.
Sure, that's what it is. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and those first responders, those folks working in hospitals and correctional facilities, they see some stuff, but it's hard sometimes to get those guys to come out and really tell what's going on. A
lot of people are worried about their credibility, which is a big thing. In any first responder type of situation. Right. One of the things the producers asked me was about some of these people, generally police officers, going out on incidents where, somebody thinks they have a intruder in their house, and it turns out that the police officer thinks it was a ghost. Does that get reported in the police report? No, not likely. Search the house, nobody was found, but they're not going to, document that they think there's a ghost in the house, even if they see one.
Well, I mean, and okay, maybe this is just because I'm a medium and I come from a different way of looking and feeling about things. But, honestly, don't you think it would make a lot more sense to acknowledge this? And I understand we live in a society where we need facts, we need hard proof, but to deny it at all and to not allow this to be any kind of a part of things when it could be helping so many more people. I can't tell you how many people have come to me, or even not come to me. Spirit has come to me to say, I need to show up because this person in front of you is a friend of my mother and she doesn't know I died, or I've been missing and they need to know what happened to me. I can't tell you how many times that's happened. And then I'm now connected with the family and I help the family. And that's so sad because there's so many cases out there that could be helped,
right?
And we're human beings. We all have these gifts. I am a firm believer in that. I feel like that would be a fact in the paranormal world. As human beings, we all are capable of this. Why some of us are more connected than others, who knows? Why can some people shut it down and some not? Who knows, right? I mean, there's so many different answers to all those questions, but we all have the capability. We're souls, and that's what makes us able to do these kinds of things. We just have to learn. We just have to acknowledge, and the one gift we're all most in tune with is our intuition. It's our gut. And with the ability as human beings to read energy around us, our spirit guides work with us on that level too. So we're being guided all the time without really knowing or realizing it, and it's just a shame that it doesn't come into play, because you could help that person that, doesn't really have the intruder, but now has to go back into this house and they're scared to death to be in their own home, even just to acknowledge it, to give them some sort of comfort, if nothing else,
But still,
sorry, Mark, go ahead. I was just going to say, it's like
boys.
Radio. You are my guest. No, you're my guest. Go ahead, sir.
So, I don't even remember what I was going to say now. It's gone that quick.
You got to remember that, a lot of those people doing those jobs are coming from a black and white. Here's the rules. Here's the policy. Here's the procedure. This is what you got to do. And if they say, yeah, there's something that just doesn't fit here, it makes it very hard when you go back. But I think with all the TV shows, especially the stuff that you're involved with, Mark, in helping those programs get out there. I mean, Travel Channel and the Discover America before it switched. I mean, those shows are so prevalent. I mean, I know Tuesday, even for me, I know Tuesdays, Animal Planet, Bigfoot's there. I know it's going to be on all the time. The podcasts that are out there. I mean, we're here doing this as well. I mean, it's become more commonplace, in how many people are like, well, I saw a ghost show. And like you said, how many folks you got originally that are doing a job? I mean, local, state, and federal are like, hey, yeah, we're going to go do this, but we're going to go debunk it. And, we can't debunk that, and they show the guys at work and they're like, hey, we were out doing this and this is what happened. And you're like, well, I got to go see this because I don't believe you. And then now they're hooked. And it just keeps rolling out, and then the phone calls.
When you do have an authentic experience, it's, you get hooked on it. And, you really, most people, some people are like, all right, I'm out. I've had enough. I don't want to see anymore. But it's, I've been trying to find somebody who, and nobody can answer this for me, to give me the proper terminology. It's addictive or it's addicting. I don't know which way to say that, but when you have these experiences, you become addicted to it almost. You want to see more, you want to understand more. And, at least for me, and I think most people who actually stay in this and, do have some experiences, you just want to keep seeing more and more, because usually they're like so brief when it does happen even. And it might only be one or two experiences. Even, and Kristie, I'm not sure like if it works this way for you, but a lot of times Virginia is picking up things very psychically. So she might be seeing stuff in her mind's eye. Sometimes she might see stuff in front of her. She really likes to see physical things happen too, because it doesn't happen all that often.
And that's exactly how I am too. Yes. There are some people who see it all the time. Like I did an investigation last year with the paranormal team local here at an opera house. And it was really cool. Our base was like in the front where the ticket sales were. And, the room wasn't any larger than a small family room, but that's where we were. And it was the door going in and out. And the one guy had this really heavy book bag. He had all sorts of heavy cords, heavy equipment in there, stuff that like I would have to struggle to pick it up and really even to move it, I had to really use two hands. And so they had it on a chair. That's like a waiting room chair, basic with arms though. And it was leaning and it had been sitting there. And at one point, I was the closest to it, and the guy who was on my my left, was like a foot from me, and the other guys were at the other end of the room. And this thing was on my right. This chair was on my right with this bag, and out of nowhere, nobody was near it. No one came in that door, nothing. It was the coolest thing. All of a sudden, you hear this noise, you look over, and you see this thing just bloop, right off the chair, and it was sitting solid on there, and we all just stopped and went, holy shit. And for me, that was so cool, because just like anything, whenever you do something all the time and it's normal and it's every day, you get used to it. But you're right. When something like that finally happens and you see it in a different way and it's physically where everyone can experience it with you, it's a whole different ballgame. It's like getting the validation, when you're given a message. And yeah, it's the neatest thing. So I can totally relate to her because I got really excited, probably more excited than they thought I should. But they don't realize, when you don't see that all the time. Not like I want stuff happening every day around me. I don't have time for that. But otherwise, it is, it's really neat.
And you guys may agree with this and experience this yourself. But one thing that we've sort of learned over the years is just because a ghost comes into a room does not mean the meters are going to react at all.
No.
And
No,
quite
you're right.
often, and that's one advantage of working with a good medium. Many times Virginia will say, oh, a man just walked into the room, or, oh, I have a woman here. And, pardon me, but we're probing the heck out of them, and nothing. We're getting no response, nothing. Even I've said, hey, you're communicating back and forth with them. Virginia will say, yes. I said, ask them if they'll work with this here. Try to manipulate some of this stuff. Get it to go off. Tell me what they're doing to make it go off. And she's like, they're trying, just not happening. Yeah. So I've really,
or they don't want to. Or
exactly, or they just don't want to. But a couple things, I think that number one, you have to have a willing participant. But we've found where if there's going to be some type of physical manifestation, that seems to be when our equipment starts to working. So let's say you might see a flash of light or door close, or you get an EVP or something like that at the time. The meters will start going a little bit if something physical is either starting to happen or happens or whatever. But I don't think every ghost can just manipulate the physical world either, because most of the time, like I said before, people are just seeing things, and very little cases do we have a lot of physical activity. So I think it might even be like watching the movie Ghost, with Demi Moore and the other guy, I can't remember his name. Patrick Swayze. Thank you. Yeah. It's I call it a focused intent that perhaps they need to be able to learn to manipulate stuff, and you might have a much broader viewpoint than I do with your ability. But a lot of spirits I don't think can or just know how to move physical stuff.
Yeah, I know. And again, they have to be strong enough for that. They truly have to be strong enough, and it does take a lot of energy. And if they can do it with ease, then they're very strong. They've probably been around a long time. They are intelligent enough to know what they're doing. And it's a whole different ballgame. And at least in my experience, and doesn't have to be across the board, they're earthbound. They have not gone into the light. Because people who are in the light, souls who have gone into the light, they work in different ways. Not that they can't flick a light to let you know they're here, or drop a quarter so you can see it. It's not that they can't, it's that they can do things in other ways. And there's a much different feel when you encounter someone who's in the light versus somebody who's not. And just because they're not in the light doesn't mean they're bad or that there's something wrong with them. But that's that limbo where you don't necessarily want people to be sticking around either, because the other stuff is around. Yeah. So, I mean, and there's always, even for people who don't really understand what I'm talking about, check out, check out Ghost Whisperer with Jennifer Love Hewitt. Used to love that show, but it's such an accurate depiction from my experiences with earthbound spirits. Not every energy you encounter is meant to intimidate or scare or hurt you. Sometimes you're picking up on the trauma that someone went through, and they're just realizing maybe they're just trying to get your attention, or they're just realizing that they can. So automatically your energy, your aura is picking up theirs. And so you're receiving that energy before the person themselves or the spirit themselves. And so that can be very scary and intimidating. And then the other is the Insidious movies, because it shows into the further, and that's a little bit more of a darker picture, but that's kind of how I see it, because when you're in the light, you can go back and forth, and you can move around. You are protected in that way. But when you have not gone to the light, you are very vulnerable, and you don't want to be able to you don't want to be vulnerable. You need to go where it's safe, because then you have that protection to then, move across the plains, however you want to say it, visit your loved ones on earth, the whole bit. So that's kind of my perspective. I think most mediums have the way I described it. I think most of us see it that way. We may just describe it a little differently, or have a little bit different opinion or perspective depending on our experiences. But I think for the most part, we all have that understanding.
Yeah.
Have you noticed any time when you're there with your prior law enforcement team, certain things don't happen because you have the interaction, or when you call out the spirit because there's some sort of criminal activity that might have gone on? Let's say you do one of the penitentiaries or something like that. Do you get notice a different reaction? Or have you had a different reaction?
Sort of. One of the biggest ones I think that I've noticed different reactions on is we have a couple people that are prior military, and some of the spirits we come across who have military backgrounds tend to gravitate towards those people. I don't know if they realize that they have former background that way, but it's almost like they're more connected and they gravitate towards them. The activity more happens around them. And then when we introduce Virginia into the house, she also will say, hey, this guy kind of is attracted to you or you guys or whoever because of your background. I had a case where I had somebody who was not thrilled with me because he had actually years ago, we did a fire station that was fairly close to where we are, just outside the Scranton area. And this guy had sort of been hiding in this fire station. He had killed someone, and the police had tracked him down to there, and the police chief had gone in, and this guy shot and killed the police chief. So when we were investigating, Virginia, told me, hey, kind of need to keep a close eye out here. This guy does not like you being here and sees me as a threat, because in his mind, he's still kind of hiding out there. And this is kind of weird because Virginia does stuff sometimes without any prior warning. And
been there, done that.
So, she has me sitting in this one particular chair. We're connecting with this guy, and she yells out like, "Holy shit, get out of the way," and pushes me right off the chair. And I'm like, what the hell?
I like her.
So I'm like, a little warning there, maybe. She's like, I've never seen this in my life. She goes, this guy, the one guy he actually killed, who was the cop, she said, he just came storming in here like I've never seen before and was going right after this guy. And I heard I got him. And she goes, he's getting him out of here. She goes, but he was like, you were right in the middle of these two. I didn't know what was going to happen. I'm like, well, for me, probably nothing, but
Well, see, I mean, if that was Mike, I wouldn't have pushed you out the chair. I would have waited to see what happened.
Right?
So,
feel that, Mike?
Yeah, I feel it all the time. I keep St. Michael medal in my pocket.
Oh, whatever.
So,
yeah,
you say she's dealt with this before. And she can see this almost like it continues to replay day after day, like it's on a loop.
No. This she felt that this guy was still lingering around the property. The police chief not. I mean, she felt he was sort of crossed over properly, but just came out of nowhere going after this guy to get him and take him back.
Like he knew he had back. He had backup that day, and it was going to be
apparently
the day.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Why he hadn't done that
that's
prior,
kind of what I was talking about. You know what I mean? Like when they're crossing to the light, they can do things like that. Like even with certain, he could have been protecting that place because he knew, he doesn't have to be stuck there. People think that because there's, spirits we can connect with on a regular basis in different places, that they're stuck or that they have to be there. And that's not the case. So many of them on these different investigations I go on, they're not earthbound. They're there because they choose to be. Some of them are, but not all of them are. And so they can come back, and he probably watches over that firehouse because he couldn't stop him in life, but he's going to make damn sure it doesn't happen to anybody else until this spirit's gone. So that doesn't surprise me. I think that's so honorable. And, his soul definitely has a mission, and anybody who is called to a vocation of service and in any way, like you guys all are, that is, that doesn't surprise me at all. There's your souls are on a mission, and you're usually just like mediums. Actually, we generally tend to repeat and come back the same for the most part, because we actually have a job to do, or our souls are in a place where we can do that, where we've done what we need to, or we'll learn along the way as we go still. but we are meant to do these certain things with every life. It's like a special job. It's there's a lot of responsibility, and it's very special.
Yeah. I'm told, we used to work with a woman named Michelle too. She passed on when she was in her late 50s, and the poor family, she told me when we first started working together, she had already a couple brothers and sisters who died, and she said historically her family doesn't make it past age 60, they die of heart issues, and sure enough she did. But she had once told me, well, she asked me, she's like, hey, do you know we were out working together last night? And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, when you were sleeping, we were out working together. And I'm like, come on, no. I'm like, I have no clue, none whatsoever.
Yep.
And she's like, well, we were. And, I couldn't prove it or dispute it or anything. I'm like, it sounds a little weird to me. I don't know.
Well, I can back her up on that one. Yes.
After she had passed away, Virginia never directly worked with her, or maybe only spoke on the phone once or twice. So the two of them never really talked. And several years after she had passed, Virginia says to me, do you know we were out working last night? I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, what do you mean out working? She's like, oh, we were taking care of this one spirit that needed to go, and we were out. She's like, did you notice anything? I'm like, no idea at all.
Yep. Isn't that funny? No, I absolutely. When especially if you feel like you should have rested and you wake up tired and you're, and of course, okay, disclaimer, yes, physically you can have things happen too, but a lot of times, especially when you feel like you should have been in a good sleep or having a good sleep and you don't, and you wake up as if you felt like you did not, that's because your soul is working. The angels will guide you. The angels will take you, and you will, or sometimes you need the help too, and you're off getting help from somebody else. And that's definitely, or especially like if you ever meet somebody or encounter somebody and you can talk to them for hours and there is no connection at all, not even an inkling of, oh yeah, this feels familiar, even though I don't remember the details. You just know that person. It's usually because at some point you work together on a different plane, in a different way, in a different vibration. And that's not unusual either. So yeah, no, 100%. I back them both up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the longer I do this, the weirder it gets. But it's just so damn interesting. I can't quit. I can't quit now.
Every time, you're like, all right, this is a load of whatever. Yeah. It's been fun. It's been a great vacation. And then you're like, oh,
by the way.
Then there's something you get pushed somewhere and you're like, there's nobody there, or you get rocks thrown at you and you're like, there's nobody there,
maybe you'll stop questioning so much, but you can't. You guys are wired that way. Then that's okay, because we've built each other out and that's what we need. So
I need documentation. I need physical proof. I need to be able to log it, plot it, type it, write it,
Yeah.
Well, that'd be nice.
And you can't do that all the time. However, we like last week, we discussed about the EVPs and the guys are like, well, I think it says this and I think it says that. And I said, well, you know what? Now what I'm going to start doing is running my EVPs through like voice recognition software and stuff like that and see what actually gets typed on the screen or on my phone. Because I know when I use voice to text, I get some really weird connections. So who knows what that EVP is really trying to say.
Right.
So I don't know if you guys have tried that or anything, but I know our guests last week were like, that's a great idea.
I got a great story on a little bit how synchronicity works, but how weird also this stuff is, because, obviously I was a skeptic. Like I said, when I started, I run a paranormal resolution team now. So at some point there was a switch to me believing in this stuff, and weird stuff, just like you keep learning more and more and these weird scenarios pop up. I got a call from one of the first producers that I worked with on The Haunted, who married this guy, and he was a producer for MTV, one of the shows on MTV. This guy's mom lived in New Jersey, just across the river from Philadelphia. And they said she was having all kinds of problems in the house, and she wanted to know if we still did our thing, and we did. So she's like, will you come down and help his mom out? So the story is the sister moved in, this guy's sister moved in with the mom, and she had a daughter, and they started having activity in the home as soon as she moved in. So we went down there and did an investigation. One of the things that Virginia came up with was that this woman lived in a really seedy area, not too far from where the mom was, in this apartment complex, and a lot of drug activity, a lot of suicides, kind of a hostile area. And she felt that this male attached himself to her, and when she moved into mom's, this guy followed her there because he was attached to her. So when we started doing the investigation and we're looking a little deeper into it, Virginia says, we have a problem. And I'm like, okay, what's the problem? She says, this ghost that's attached to the girl has a demon that is attached to him. So she said, before I can even get rid of this ghost, we need to get the demon off of him so I could work with them to get him out of here. And I'm like, are you kidding me? We got a ghost with a demon attachment. Like, yep. I'm like,
yes. Again, Insidious movies. Those are the best movies that I can use as references for things like this, just to give some sort of an accurate idea.
Now, here's
holy water and a super soaker.
So, right? This husband and wife production team now, they're independent contractors, so they do a little bit of stuff themselves. So of course they said, hey, while you're coming to investigate my, boyfriend's mom's house, do you mind if we film you guys of what you do? And we're like, no, that's fine. So they filmed it. They put a little package together that they were going to run as a sizzle to put out there to possibly pitch a new show. And, at the time we were kind of cop heavy, and he goes, I want to call it Paranormal Cops. And I'm like, no. I said, we don't have all cops on the team, and, it's kind of a mix now. And I said, I get that, but I don't like that. And he goes, all right, we're going to call it Paranormal 911. And I said, okay, that sounds good. So fast forward several years later, I end up on a show called Paranormal 911, completely unrelated to that.
Wow.
Talk about synchronicity.
Awesome. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Wow. And the time has flown. We're a half hour over. Can you believe it? Gosh. Mark, it has been so nice having you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Oh, this is a ton of fun. Anytime.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we'd love to have you back sometime. I know, we could talk for hours.
I know. So many questions, so little time.
Right? I'm telling you. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I know we have to wrap up. There are other shows going on and things like that. So, and I'm sure you guys have to work tomorrow.
that happens.
Yeah.
So thank you for your service. Thank you for your time this evening.
Same to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Yes. And best of luck. Remember, check out Mark's website. Check out the association's website, the t-shirts, his books on Amazon.
Yes.
There you go.
There you go. Yes. Awesome.
They are actually linked right on my homepage too. If you're interested in reading about that case we talked about, the link is right on the homepage.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Well, have a wonderful night and stay safe, okay?
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. We'll talk soon. Have a great night. Good night.
Oh, I think I got him too soon. Like usual. I'm clicking too soon.
Like usual. Mike's the happy.
Folks,
so what, you got like this whole food thing going on over there. What's up with that?
It's just the lighting. So yours didn't do anything. So
it's been going up and down all night. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I've been watching it. So all right. We're at the end. Next, so coming up soon. Next week we are going to have a reading show. Yes. And the following week, we finally, made sure everything's set, and the advertisement will go up tomorrow. Hopefully, tomorrow the advertisement will go up. We will have Chef Jet Tila from multiple different venues, but usually known from the Food Network. Yeah. I can't say chef living with one, and I can't say Jet Tila, and I talk to him probably once or twice a week through different social media platforms. Again, short names I butcher even worse than I butcher my own name.
Don't
So
worry,
again,
I will let you.
we're gonna be talking to the chef. We're gonna be talking about food and family and superstition and paranormal.
Yes.
So that
We've
is
got some stories to
November
share with
10th.
us. I can't wait.
So yes.
Yes. So
So
next week, November
please-
3rd, is Spirit Messages with me. We're going to have a reading show, and then November 10th. Mark your calendars and make sure you share it.
Okay.
Yes, please. And then the following week, actually, we have Squatchy Girl, Miss Carrie Carlson's going to be on with us.
Yes.
A little bit of Bigfoot.
She sends me her
Mike's-
bio.
Oh, Carrie, get on that. Yes.
So
All right. So
Thank
thank
you.
you all.
remember the subscriber giveaway, guys, on YouTube. Like, share, subscribe. We're pushing those numbers. They're going up. So
Yes. And if you'd like to buy bracelets, here they are right here. Please support $5 a bracelet. Support Let's Kick Cancer's Butt. Okay. Let's do it for Brian and help him through this tough time. Just get a hold of me if you want details, and I will definitely be happy to help you with that. So
thank
All
you
right,
for the tours.
everybody. Yes. Thank you so much again to our guest, Mark. And yes, Michael.
Remember to sample on.